A few days later, after finishing all the paperwork, I packed my things and left my in-laws' house. I told my mother-in-law I was leaving today and gave her a polite bow. She glared at me and said, "You've been a terrible wife and mother, from the beginning to the end." Then she accused me of being the worst mother for leaving my kids. I couldn't believe how cruel she was. My kids, Josh and Amy, laughed when they heard what she said. My name is Maria, I'm 42 years old, and I'm a housewife. I live with my husband, Ken, and our 2 kids, Josh and Amy. Our kids are growing up well, and Ken works hard, so everything was peaceful. But things changed recently. My father-in-law passed away, and my mother-in-law moved in with us. Ken, being her only son, felt bad about her being alone, so he decided she would move in without asking me. I always thought he was too attached to his mom, but I didn't expect him to make such a big decision without talking to me. When I objected, he said, "Are you asking me to leave my mom with nowhere to go?" And I had no choice but to agree. After that, it felt like living in a nightmare. My mother-in-law had always disliked me, and now she found every chance to criticize me. "Maria, what's the seasoning for this?" "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll be more careful. I don't like greasy food." "Well, the kids are growing fast, and Ken likes fried food too. Then just make a separate meal for me. I don't want to eat unhealthy food and die early." "I'd love to, but it would cost more and be a hassle." "That's where you come in. Ken makes enough money, so you should be able to handle the finances. You're so spoiled. When I was young, I did all the housework by myself, no matter how hard it was. It's sad that my grandchildren have to live in a house run by such a lazy mother." I wanted to say, "If you have so much to complain about, why don't you do it?" But I held back because if I said anything, Ken would get really angry with me. At first, I tried to stand up to her, but she would always tell Ken, and then he would yell at me, saying, "How dare you talk to her like that when I'm the one supporting you?" I thought about getting a divorce, but as a stay-at-home mom, I couldn't take care of the kids on my own. They are everything to me, and I didn't want to lose them, so I decided to keep quiet and put up with it. Instead of just enduring it, I started planning for a divorce little by little. I applied for jobs at different companies while my mother-in-law watched me all day. Only one company offered me a part-time position. Thanks to my previous job as a bank clerk, I got a clerical job at a bank. It was my first office job in years, and I actually enjoyed it. Of course, it was stressful and came with a lot of responsibility, but it was much better than being stuck at home with my mother-in-law all the time. But my mother-in-law didn't like that I was working. "Why work when Ken makes enough money? Maybe she's out looking for men. What kind of person thinks like that? She's an idiot," she would say. It's true that Ken makes a good salary, but since his mother moved in, our expenses have gone up, so we're not in a position where we can afford everything. Still, my mother-in-law told me I should give her an allowance for my part-time job, to make sure I wasn't spending it on men. When I refused, saying it wasn't possible, she went straight to Ken. That night, when Ken came home from work, he yelled at me just like before. "Are you having an affair?" "What? No, I'm not. My mother said you're using your part-time salary to pay for men." "I'm not doing that." "Why are you believing her lies? Just stop, then prove you're not guilty by giving her the allowance she wants." "Oh no." Then, my mother-in-law came in, smiling smugly. $500 a month. That much? That's what my mother says, so you need to give it to her. In the end, I couldn't fight them both. I had to give most of the money I earned from my part-time job to my mother-in-law as an allowance. To make things worse, she told the kids, "Your mother is a horrible adulterer," with a smirk on her face. Even my kids, who were in junior high, knew what that meant. It was terrible to lie like that. I felt it was so unfair, and it was ruining my life. Then, something happened that made everything even worse. I found out my husband was having an affair. All along, he had been accusing me of cheating, but it was him the whole time. This pushed me over the edge, and they say when you reach your breaking point, everything just comes pouring out. I didn't want to spend another second with these people, so I went straight to get the divorce papers. "I can't stay in this house after what you've done," I told my husband as I confronted him with the papers. He just laughed and said, "I don't want an old woman like you in my house." I knew he was planning to be with his lover after the divorce. He agreed to pay alimony and divide the property without hesitation. When the kids were asked where they wanted to stay, both of them said they wanted to stay in the house. My mother-in-law glared at me and said, I knew you liked your father more than this woman. A few days later, after completing all the paperwork, I packed my bags and left my in-laws' house. I told my mother-in-law I was leaving that day, bowing to her as a gesture of respect. She smirked and sarcastically said, "You've been a terrible wife and mother from the start." Then she added, "You're such a bad mother to leave your children." I didn't know how she could keep making fun of me. My kids, Josh and Amy, laughed at what she said. "See, even the kids are laughing at you. What a pathetic mother." "Well, actually, the kids chose to stay here, so I'm not abandoning them." "Oh, I see, so you're the sad woman who got abandoned by her children." "Say whatever you want, but remember, from now on, you're the one in charge of everything here. Don't worry about me, unlike you, I can handle everything." "Alright then, I really must be going now." With that, I left my in-laws' house. I went back to my parents' house and threw myself into work. I asked my job to switch me to full-time and took the test to become a full-time employee. Thankfully, I got the position. Now I could take the kids with me, and I knew my mother-in-law would be worn out soon. Sure enough, about 3 months later, my mother-in-law called me. "Maria, help me out." "What's wrong?" "I need to take Josh to his soccer games and even help with training camps during the summer. Plus, I have to make his lunch for morning practice and wash his dirty uniforms every day. Amy also goes to cram school, so I have to drive her there and back every day, and I'm doing all the housework by myself." Ken says he's tired from work and doesn't help at all. If you're just going to complain, I'm hanging up. Wait, I'm calling because I need your help. Sorry, I'm already divorced, so this isn't my problem. Please don't say that. I'm not going back, but I understand that you can't handle everything on your own. I can't trust you with my precious children. I'll take them, that's what they want. What? They want to stay here. They just want you to understand how hard I've been working. What? Yes, when I decided to get a divorce, the first thing I did was talk to the kids. They said they'd stay with you at first. Amy said, "But that means grandmother and the others are just kicking you out, right, Mom?" Then Josh said, "I don't like that. We know how hard you work, Mom, so they decided to stay and show you how hard it is to live with you." I was so relieved to know that my kids were on my side. I made up my mind that I would work hard and make enough money to bring them home for good. Well then. Yes, everything went according to plan. I'm now a full-time employee, and I'll take the kids. Oh no. I hired a lawyer and demanded custody. Since the kids wanted to live with me, the court quickly agreed to transfer custody. When I told his boss about the affair, they were shocked. My ex-husband was moved to a department where he wouldn't be able to advance in his career. Because of this, he can no longer afford the mortgage on the house. My ex-mother-in-law was also ordered to get a job, which she hated. She was furious that her son was making decisions for her. Now, my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law are blaming each other. They'll probably have to leave the house, but that's not my concern anymore. As for me, I rented an apartment and moved in with my children. They're growing up to be amazing kids. My daughter cooks, and my son helps with the laundry and cleaning. I want to be able to support them so they can do whatever they want in the future, so I'm going to keep working hard to earn money. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.
I used to believe that love conquered all, that trust was unbreakable when built on years of shared dreams and promises. That was before I found the statement that shattered my world into a million gleaming pieces. My name is Lucille, and until last Tuesday I thought I had it all figured out. A corner office at Morrison & Blake Financial Services, a marriage that made my colleagues envious, and the kind of life my grandmother had always dreamed for me. The inheritance she left me was supposed to be our nest egg, our future. Another late night? Nigel's voice carried from the kitchen as I walked through our front door. The familiar smell of his signature pasta filled the house. The Harrison portfolio needed reviewing, I called back, dropping my briefcase by the stairs. Something felt off about their numbers. He appeared in the doorway, dish towel over his shoulder, that boyish smile that had made me fall for him 8 years ago still intact. Always the perfectionist. Come here. I let him pull me into a hug, breathing in the scent of garlic and his cologne. If I'd known then what I know now, I would have pushed him away. Mail came for you, he said, gesturing to the pile on the counter. Looks important. I flipped through the envelopes until I reached one from our bank. Usually Nigel handled the joint accounts, but this one was addressed to me specifically. I tore it open, expecting nothing more than a routine statement. The first transaction that caught my eye made my blood run cold. Nigel, I said, keeping my voice steady, why is there a transfer of $50,000 to your mother's account? He froze mid-stir, his back to me. Oh, that. Mum needed some help with her medical bills. Medical bills? I flipped to the next page. And I suppose Bruce needed medical attention too. Another $40,000 to his account? The wooden spoon clattered against the pot. Luce, I can explain. Explain what? My finger traced down the list of transactions. That you've been systematically draining my grandmother's inheritance to fund your family's lifestyle? The Maldives vacation your mother wouldn't stop bragging about at Christmas. Was that her medical treatment? He turned to face me, his expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. Their family, Lucille, they needed help. They needed help? I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. That money was meant for our future, Nigel, for the children we talked about having. How much is left? His silence was answer enough. How long? I demanded, gripping the counter to steady myself. How long have you been lying to me? 2 years, he whispered. Mom was in trouble with her mortgage, and then Bruce's business was failing, and it just snowballed. I thought about all the times I'd sat across from clients, advising them on protecting their assets, while my own husband had been stealing from me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Does your mother know where the money came from? He nodded slowly. They all do. They thought you'd understand. That since we're family now... Family? I cut him off. Family doesn't steal from each other, Nigel. Family doesn't conspire behind your back to take what isn't theirs. My phone buzzed. A text from Sandra. Drinks tonight. You seem off lately. If she only knew. We can fix this, Nigel pleaded, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. I'll talk to Mom, make arrangements to pay it back. With what money? I asked quietly. Your mother's vacation fund? Bruce's new Mercedes? The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Outside, a car alarm went off, its shrill wail matching the screaming in my head. I trusted you, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I trusted all of you. Lucille, please. I need some air. I grabbed my keys from the counter, the statement still clutched in my other hand. Don't follow me. As I drove through the darkening streets, my grandmother's voice echoed in my head. Never let anyone make you feel small, Lucille. Not even the ones you love. I pulled into the parking lot of our favourite bar, where Sandra would be waiting. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Nigel, but something else caught my eye. An email notification about our holiday home's property taxes. The holiday home we'd bought last year, the one Nigel's family didn't know about yet. A plan began to form in my mind, sharp and clear as crystal. If they wanted to take what was mine, maybe it was time to give them exactly what they deserved. I smiled for the first time since opening that statement. Nigel's family had no idea what was coming. "You're going to do what?" Sandra nearly choked on her martini, her eyes wide with disbelief. I took a slow sip of my wine, letting the warmth of revenge wash over me. "I'm going to sell the holiday home, the one Nigel thinks is our secret nest egg." "And then what? Show them the sold sign and say, 'Surprise.'" Sandra leaned forward, her voice dropping. "Lucille, this isn't you. The old me died when I saw that bank statement." I pulled out my phone, showing her the real estate agent's message. "The market's hot right now. I can get well above what we paid for it." "Have you even confronted his mother about this?" The memory of Alia's smug face at Christmas flashed through my mind. "Oh, you mean when she was showing off her Maldives photos? The ones my grandmother's money paid for?" Sandra winced. "Okay, point taken, but..." My phone buzzed. Another message from Nigel. I ignored it. "Remember what my grandmother used to say?" I asked, tracing the rim of my wine glass. "Sometimes the best revenge is letting people crash into the consequences of their own actions." "I don't think she meant it quite like this," Sandra muttered. The next morning, I met with Rachel, my real estate agent, at her office. The morning sun cast long shadows across her desk as she spread out the paperwork. "You're sure about this?" she asked, highlighting the signature lines. "It's a beautiful property." "I'm sure." I signed my name with steady hands. "How long until we can list it?" "We can have it up by this afternoon. The market's incredibly active right now." Perfect. Phase 1 of my plan was in motion. When I got home that evening, Nigel was waiting. He'd been sleeping in the guest room since our confrontation, but tonight he was in the kitchen, cooking again. A peace offering. "I talked to Mom," he said as I walked in. "She's willing to work something out." "Is she?" I kept my voice neutral, setting my briefcase down. "And what exactly did she suggest?" He stirred the pot nervously. She offered to let us use their timeshare in Florida. "As compensation." I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make him flinch. "Their timeshare, the one they bought with my money?" "Lucille, please. They're trying." "Not hard enough." I pulled out my laptop, making a show of checking my email. "But speaking of properties, I was thinking we should invite your family to the holiday home. You know, the one we bought last year." His spoon clattered against the pot. "What? Why not? It might be nice, all of us together. One big, happy family." The words tasted like vinegar in my mouth. "But we agreed to keep that place private, our special getaway." I smiled, thinking of the sold sign that would soon be standing in the front yard. "Times change, Nigel. People change. Besides, your mother's always talking about how family should share everything." He studied my face, uncertainty clouding his features. "You're serious about this?" "Absolutely." I opened my phone and started typing. "In fact, I'm sending them all invitations right now. Next weekend would be perfect." "Lucille." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Don't you trust me?" I echoed his words from countless conversations, watching them hit their mark. Later that night, I sat on our back porch, my grandmother's old shawl wrapped around my shoulders. The stars were bright, reminding me of nights spent on her porch, listening to her stories of resilience and dignity in the face of betrayal. My phone lit up with responses from Nigel's family. Aaliyah's message was typically condescending. "How lovely of you to finally share with the family. We accept, of course." Bruce's response was immediate. "Great. Trisha and I could use a weekend away." I closed my eyes, imagining their faces when they realized what I'd done. The property would be sold by Thursday, leaving just enough time for the new owners to take possession before the family's planned arrival. Sandra's words from the bar echoed in my head. "This isn't you." Maybe she was right. Maybe this wasn't who I used to be. But then again, I used to be the woman who trusted her husband, who believed in family loyalty, who thought love meant something. My phone buzzed again. A message from Rachel. "First showing tomorrow. Multiple buyers interested." I smiled into the darkness. Grandmother always said that sometimes the universe has a way of balancing the scales. She just never mentioned that sometimes you have to help it along. Inside, I heard Nigel on the phone, probably talking to his mother. His voice was muffled, but I caught fragments. "Different lately. Worried. Don't know what to do. Good. Let him worry. Let them all worry. I pulled my grandmother's shawl tighter around my shoulders and started making lists in my head. People to call, arrangements to make, pieces to move into place. The game was on, and this time I was writing the rules. The restaurant buzzed with dinner conversation as I sat across from Alia, watching her dissect her overpriced salmon with surgical precision. She'd insisted on this mother-daughter dinner before the weekend getaway, probably to scope out my intentions. I must say, she dabbed her lips with her napkin, this invitation came as quite a surprise. You've always been so private about your affairs, I smiled, cutting into my steak. Well, as you always say, family should share everything. Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. Indeed, though I hope you understand our concern about Nigel lately. He seems troubled. Does he? I took a sip of wine. I hadn't noticed. Come now, Lucille. She reached across the table, her manicured hand stopping short of touching mine. We both know things haven't been quite right since that unfortunate business with the money. Unfortunate business? The wine turned bitter in my mouth. Is that what we're calling theft now? Alia's smile tightened. We preferred to think of it as family helping family. Surely you understand. What I understand, I cut in, is that my grandmother worked 60 years as a teacher to leave me that inheritance. But please, tell me more about how your Maldives vacation was family helping family. A couple at the next table glanced our way. Alia lowered her voice, leaning forward. Now, dear, let's not make a scene. We're all trying to move forward, aren't we? That's why you've invited us to this lovely holiday home? Exactly. I forced a smile. It's time everyone got what they deserve. My phone vibrated. A text from Rachel. Paperwork finalized. Keys transfer Thursday. Everything all right? Alia asked, noticing my expression. Perfect. I tucked the phone away. Just confirming the weekend arrangements. Later that evening, I found Nigel waiting up in the living room. How was dinner with Mom? Illuminating. I dropped my keys in the bowl. Your brother called, by the way. He's bringing Roberto. My nephew, Nigel frowned, but he hates family gatherings. Apparently, Tricia insisted, something about family bonding. Nigel stood, approaching me cautiously. Luce, are you sure about this weekend? We could still cancel. And disappoint your mother, I stepped around him. She's so looking forward to seeing our holiday home, unless there's some reason you don't want them to come. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous tell I'd noticed years ago. No, it's just, you've been different lately. Distant. Have I? I met his eyes. Or am I just finally seeing things clearly? The next morning, Sandra ambushed me at my office during lunch. This has gone far enough, she announced, dropping into the chair across from my desk. I talked to Rachel. I set down my sandwich. You what? She told me the house sold yesterday above asking price. Sandra leaned forward. Lucille, what happens when they show up and find strangers living there? Justice happens. I started gathering papers, avoiding her gaze. Karma happens. No, humiliation happens. To everyone involved, including you. She grabbed my wrist, forcing me to look at her. Is that really what your grandmother would want? My grandmother would want me to stand up for myself. Stand up, yes, but this? She shook her head. This is something else entirely. My phone buzzed. A text from Tricia. Roberto's so excited about the weekend. Thank you for bringing the family together like this. Sandra saw the message. Even the kid? Really? He's 16, not 6. But something twisted in my stomach. Besides, he should learn early that actions have consequences. Like his aunt's actions? Sandra stood, gathering her purse. Just think about what you're really trying to accomplish here, and whether it's worth the cost. After she left, I stared at the family photo on my desk, taken last Christmas, before I knew the truth. Alia, in her expensive new jewellery, Bruce showing off his watch, Tricia fussing over Roberto, Nigel's arm around my waist. All of it paid for with my grandmother's money. My phone rang, Rachel again. The new owners want to move in Friday morning. Will that be a problem? I thought about Aaliyah's smug smile at dinner, about Nigel's nervous hands, about Roberto's excitement. No, I said firmly. No problem at all. That evening, I packed my overnight bag for the weekend, laying out the documents I'd need. Property sale papers, bank statements, proof of every transaction they'd tried to hide. Nigel appeared in the doorway. Need help packing? No. I zipped the bag closed. Everything's exactly where it needs to be. Tomorrow they'd all learn what it feels like to have something taken away. Tomorrow the scales would finally balance. I just hoped Sandra was wrong about the cost. The caravan of cars pulled into the holiday home's driveway just as the sun began to set. I watched through the kitchen window as Aaliyah emerged from her Mercedes, designer sunglasses perched on her head despite the fading light. "This location is divine," she called out, while Bruce helped Trisha unload their SUV. "Though I would have chosen something a bit more substantial." Roberto slouched out of the back seat, headphones firmly in place, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. At least someone was being honest about their feelings. "Mum, please," Nigel said, carrying their bags inside. "It's perfect for what we need." What they needed. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Lucille, darling," Trisha bustled in, pulling me into an unwanted hug. "This is so generous of you, bringing the family together like this." I extracted myself from her embrace. "Well, you know what they say about family and sharing." "Speaking of sharing," Bruce appeared, already heading for the wine fridge, "I hope you stocked up for the weekend." "Help yourself," I said, watching him select an expensive bottle. "It's what family does, right?" Aaliyah shot me a sharp look but said nothing. The evening progressed exactly as I'd expected. Bruce dominated the conversation with tales of his latest business ventures, while Trisha fussed over everyone's plates. Roberto remained glued to his phone, occasionally rolling his eyes at his parents' attempts to engage him. "Put that away," Bruce snapped at his son. "We're here for family time." "Whatever," Roberto muttered, but tucked the phone away. His eyes met mine across the table, and I saw a flash of understanding there that made me uncomfortable. After dinner, I escaped to the back deck, needing air. The sound of waves in the distance usually calmed me, but tonight they seemed to echo my turbulent thoughts. "Mom's driving me crazy," Nigel's voice came from behind me. "I'm sorry about all this." "Are you?" I turned to face him. "Sorry about what exactly?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I heard you and Mom at dinner the other night. At the restaurant. Eavesdropping now?" "The waiter told me you seemed upset." He ran his hands through his hair again. "Luce, I know I messed up, but they're still family." "Family?" I laughed quietly. "Is that what you told yourself when you were transferring my money to their accounts? That family makes it okay?" Inside, I could hear Aaliyah directing Bruce on where to put their bags. Still controlling everything, still acting like she owned the place. "Please," Nigel's voice cracked. "I'll do anything to make this right. I've been looking for better jobs, trying to figure out how to pay you back." "Mom," Roberto appeared in the doorway, interrupting Nigel's plea. "Dad's being a jerk again. Can I hang out here?" I nodded, grateful for the interruption. Roberto settled into one of the deck chairs, pulling out a sketchbook. "You draw?" I asked, noticing the detailed landscapes on the pages. "Yeah. Dad thinks it's a waste of time," he shrugged. "Says I should focus on business classes instead." "Like the business classes he took before losing all that money?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Roberto's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" Nigel stepped forward quickly. "Nothing. He means nothing by it." "No. What did you mean?" Roberto pressed, looking at me. "Is that why you guys suddenly had money for that stupid car Dad bought?" "Roberto," Nigel started, but was cut off by Bruce's booming voice from inside. "Son, get in here and help your mother unpack." Roberto slammed his sketchbook shut. "I'm not deaf," he shouted back, but stood to go inside. At the door, he paused. "Thanks for letting me hide out here." After he left, Nigel turned to me. "Please don't drag him into this." "Into what?" I asked innocently. "The family business of taking what isn't yours." Through the window, I could see Aaliyah arranging her things in the master bedroom, my bedroom. As if she owned the place. Tomorrow she'd learn just how temporary her claim to this space was. I hear them, you know, I said quietly. When they think I'm not listening. Your mother planning more trips, Bruce talking about expanding his business, all while my grandmother's money sits in their accounts. I'll talk to them again, Nigel promised. Make them understand. Understand what? That actions have consequences. I checked my phone, a message from Rachel confirming tomorrow's timeline. Don't worry, Nigel, they'll understand soon enough. Inside, I could hear Aaliyah calling everyone to the living room for coffee and dessert, playing the perfect hostess in a house that wouldn't be here tomorrow. Coming? Nigel asked, holding the door. I smiled, thinking of the documents in my overnight bag upstairs. Of course. We wouldn't want to miss family time. The night was young and tomorrow promised to be unforgettable. The doorbell rang at exactly 9 a.m. I'd been watching the clock, counting down the minutes, my hands wrapped around a coffee mug that had long gone cold. Who could that be? Aaliyah asked from her perch on the sofa where she'd been planning yet another family vacation on her iPad. I'll get it, I said, standing before Nigel could move. Rachel stood on the doorstep with the new owners, exactly as planned. Good morning, Lucille. We're here for the final walkthrough and key handover. The silence behind me was deafening. I'm sorry, Aaliyah's voice cut through the tension. Key handover? Yes. I turned to face the family, all frozen in various states of confusion. I sold the house. The new owners take possession today. Bruce was the first to recover. This is a joke, right? Like the joke of stealing my inheritance? I pulled the stack of bank statements from my bag. Or maybe like the joke of using my grandmother's money to fund your failed business ventures. Lucille, Nigel stepped forward, his face pale. What have you done? What have I done? I laughed, the sound sharp and cold. I've simply followed the family tradition of taking what isn't mine. Oh, wait, no, this house was actually mine to sell. Tricia clutched her coffee cup, looking between me and Nigel. I don't understand. We just got here. And now you're leaving. I turned to Rachel and the new owners. Please come in. Don't mind my soon-to-be ex-family. They were just packing. Ex-family? Aaliyah stood, her face flushed with anger. How dare you? After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done? I threw the bank statements onto the coffee table. You mean like spending my grandmother's life savings on your luxury vacations? Or helping Bruce buy his Mercedes? Please tell me more about everything you've done for me. Roberto picked up one of the statements, his eyes widening as he read. Dad, is this true? Is this where the money for your new car came from? Bruce snatched the paper from his hands. Stay out of this, Roberto. Why? I asked. Afraid he'll learn the family business too early? Stealing, lying, betraying trust? That's enough, Nigel shouted, making everyone jump. This is cruel, Lucille. Even for what we did, this is cruel. Cruel? I turned to him slowly. Was it cruel when you watched your mother spend my inheritance on first-class flights? Was it cruel when you helped Bruce hide his transfers? Or did cruelty only start mattering when you got caught? The new owners shifted uncomfortably by the door. Rachel cleared her throat. Perhaps we should come back. No need, I said firmly. The house needs to be vacated today. Those were the terms of sale. You can't do this, Aaliyah hissed, her perfect composure finally cracking. We'll fight this. With what? The money you stole from me? I smiled. Go ahead. I have all the documentation right here. Should we call the police? Discuss fraud charges? Tricia started crying, while Bruce cursed under his breath and began gathering their things. Roberto stood apart from them all, still holding one of the bank statements, his face a mask of disgust. I knew something was wrong, he said quietly. All those sudden gifts, the trips. I knew we couldn't afford it. Roberto, go pack your things, Bruce ordered. No. Roberto looked at his father. You're no better than the guys who scammed Grandpa out of his retirement. You're worse, because you did it to family. Aaliyah gasped. How dare you speak to your father that way? How dare you steal from Lucille? Roberto shot back. I watched as they all began to unravel. Trisha crying harder, Bruce and Roberto arguing, Aaliyah trying to maintain control of a situation long past controlling. Only Nigel remained silent, staring at the floor. "The movers will be here in an hour," I announced. "I suggest you all be gone by then." "Lucille," Nigel finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "Please, we can work this out." I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in weeks. The man I'd loved, who I'd trusted with everything, who had betrayed me so completely. "No," I said softly. "We really can't." As they gathered their belongings, amid tears and accusations and slammed doors, Roberto paused beside me. "I'm sorry," he said, "for what they did, for what we took from you." I touched his shoulder gently. "You didn't take anything, Roberto. Don't carry their guilt." He nodded, then followed his parents out the door. Rachel and the new owners began their walkthrough as the cars pulled away. I stood on the front porch, watching them disappear down the drive, feeling strangely empty. My phone buzzed. A message from Sandra. "Is it done?" I looked at the house that was no longer mine, at the family that was driving away, at the life I'd just blown apart. "Yes," I typed back. "It's done." But as I watched Nigel's car disappear around the bend, I wondered if anything was really finished at all. The cafe was nearly empty when Nigel found me 3 days later. I'd been expecting him. The dozens of missed calls and messages had made that inevitable. "You look terrible," I said as he slid into the booth across from me. The dark circles under his eyes matched the wrinkled state of his usually pristine shirt. "Mom's in the hospital," he said without preamble. "Anxiety attack. The doctors say stress triggered it." I stirred my coffee slowly. "Is that supposed to make me feel guilty?" "No." He rubbed his face. "I don't know. Everything's falling apart, Luce. Bruce's wife left him, took Roberto with her. Mum's a mess. And I..." He trailed off. "And you what?" I set my spoon down. "Finally have to face consequences." The waitress approached, but one look at our faces sent her retreating. "I never meant for any of this to happen," he said. "Mum was in trouble with her mortgage, and she was crying, and I thought I could fix it. Take a little money, pay it back before you noticed. But you didn't stop at a little, did you?" He shook his head. "Once they knew about the money, it was like a switch flipped. Every problem became an emergency. Every want became a need. And I was trapped. You could have told me." "Could I?" He leaned forward. "You're the successful one, the smart one. I was already the failure who couldn't match your salary. How could I admit I'd betrayed you too?" A laugh escaped me, bitter and sharp. "So you betrayed me more to avoid admitting you'd betrayed me?" "That's some logic, Nigel." "I know." His voice cracked. "I know it makes no sense, but I've lost everything now. You, the respect of my nephew, my family's trust. Even Mom won't look me in the eye anymore." Outside, rain began to fall, matching the mood. A text lit up my phone, Sandra asking if I was okay. I ignored it. "Roberto called me yesterday," I said, watching Nigel's reaction. "Did you know he's applying to art school?" Surprise flickered across his face. "What? But Bruce would never..." "Bruce doesn't get a say anymore. Trisha's supporting Roberto's choice." I took a sip of coffee. Funny how truth can set people free. Is that what this was about? Setting people free? No. I met his eyes. This was about justice, about consequences, about showing your family they can't just take what they want without paying a price. He was quiet for a long moment. "And what about us? What's the price for what we had?" "Had," I emphasized. Past tense. "Lucille, please." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I'll do anything to make this right. I've been looking at jobs in other cities, places where we could start fresh." "Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop. Do you really think I could ever trust you again? Sleep next to you, share a life with you, knowing what you did?" The rain grew heavier, drumming against the windows. A few tables away, an elderly couple shared a piece of pie, feeding each other bites and laughing softly. "I love you," he whispered. "Doesn't that count for anything?" Love without trust is just another way to get hurt. I stood, gathering my purse. Your mother will be fine. She's tougher than she lets on. Bruce will either learn from this or he won't. That's his choice. And you. I paused, looking at the man I'd once planned to grow old with. You need to figure out who you are without your family's expectations crushing you. And what about you? His voice was barely audible above the rain. Who are you without me? I smiled, thinking of my grandmother's strength, of Roberto's courage to choose his own path, of Sandra's unwavering friendship. I'm someone who finally understands that sometimes love isn't enough. That trust, once broken, leaves scars that no amount of apologies can heal. So that's it? He looked up at me, eyes glistening. 8 years together, just gone? No. I pulled out my wallet, leaving money for my coffee. 8 years gone the moment you chose your family's greed over our future. Today is just me finally accepting that truth. As I walked toward the door, he called out one last time. What do I tell them? The family? I turned back, rain framing the window behind me. Tell them thank you for teaching me that sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones who claim to love you best. Outside, the rain soaked through my jacket, but I didn't rush to my car. Instead, I stood there, letting the water wash over me, feeling lighter than I had in months. My phone buzzed again. Sandra. Wine and pizza at my place tonight? This time I replied, yes, I think it's time to start new traditions. Behind me, through the cafe window, I could see Nigel with his head in his hands. But for the first time since this all began, I felt no urge to look back. Sandra's doorbell rang just as we were opening our second bottle of wine. Through the peephole, I saw Aaliyah standing there, perfectly coiffed, despite her recent hospital stay. Don't answer it, I whispered, but Sandra was already opening the door. We need to talk, Aaliyah announced, stepping inside uninvited. She looked smaller somehow, less intimidating without her usual entourage. Sandra glanced at me. I'll give you two some privacy. No, I said firmly. Whatever she has to say, she can say it in front of you. Aaliyah perched on the edge of an armchair, her designer purse clutched tight in her lap. The doctors say I should avoid stress, but I couldn't leave things like this. Like what? I took a deliberate sip of wine. Like the mess you made stealing my inheritance? Like family torn apart, she snapped, then caught herself smoothing her skirt. Nigel's devastated. Bruce's marriage is over. Even Roberto won't speak to us. Sounds like karma to me. Is that what you wanted? Her voice cracked. To destroy everything. Sandra shifted uncomfortably on the couch beside me, but I held my ground. No, Aaliyah. That's what you wanted when you took my money. I just made sure everyone saw the truth. The truth? She laughed bitterly. The truth is we were desperate. Bruce's business was failing. The bank was threatening foreclosure on my house. So you stole from me. I set my glass down hard. Instead of asking for help, instead of being honest, you all conspired to take what wasn't yours. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family. I was standing now, years of hurt pouring out. Family doesn't manipulate and lie and treat someone's inheritance like their personal piggy bank. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Roberto. I tracked Mum's phone, he said, stepping inside. Figured she'd come here. Aaliyah turned to him. Roberto, darling? Don't. He held up his hand. I'm not here for you. I came to thank Lucille. That stopped everyone short. Sandra quietly slipped into the kitchen, leaving us to our family drama. Thank me, I asked. For what? For showing me what real strength looks like. He pulled out a folded paper from his jacket. I got accepted to art school, full scholarship. Aaliyah gasped. But your father's business is built on lies, Roberto cut in. Just like everything else in this family, I'm done pretending. I watched Aaliyah's face crumple, years of careful control finally breaking. We were trying to protect our way of life. By stealing someone else's? Roberto shook his head. That's not protection, Grandma, that's theft. My phone buzzed. A text from Nigel. Mum's gone. Are you with her? He's worried about you, I told Aaliyah, showing her the message. He's always worried about me. She dabbed at her eyes with an expensive handkerchief. That's how we got here, isn't it? His need to fix everything, my need to maintain appearances. And my inheritance paid the price, I finished. Roberto sat on the arm of my chair. Mum's filing for divorce says she's tired of Dad's schemes. Good for her, I said, meaning it. Aaliyah stood suddenly. I should go. The doctors said, Sit down, I interrupted. We're not done. She sank back into the chair, looking older than I'd ever seen her. You want to fix this? I asked. Really fix it? She nodded slowly. Then start with the truth. All of it. No more manipulation. No more pretense. The truth! She glanced at Roberto, then back to me. The truth is, I was jealous. Of your success, your independence, everything came so easily to you. Easy? I laughed. I worked 2 jobs through college. My grandmother saved for 30 years to leave me that inheritance. Nothing about it was easy. I know that now. She twisted the handkerchief in her hands. I know we can never repay what we took, not just the money, but the trust. No, I agreed. You can't. Roberto stood. But we can do better going forward. Be better. Sandra reappeared with fresh glasses of wine and a knowing look. Family's complicated, she said, handing them out. But secrets make it toxic. Aaliyah took a small sip. What do we do now? Now? I looked at Roberto's acceptance letter, at Aaliyah's trembling hands, at the mess we'd all made. Now we start over. With truth this time. My phone buzzed again. Nigel sending another worried message about his mother. Tell him I'm safe, Aaliyah said quietly. Tell him. Tell him I'm finally learning what family really means. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across Sandra's living room. Nothing was fixed, not really. But as I watched Roberto show his grandmother his portfolio, saw her genuine interest in his art for the first time, I realized that sometimes breaking things is the only way to rebuild them stronger. To new beginnings, Sandra raised her glass. To truth, Roberto added. To family, Aaliyah whispered. I lifted my glass thinking of my grandmother's wisdom. To consequences. The autumn breeze rustled through my grandmother's garden as I knelt to plant the last of her favourite roses. Sandra worked beside me, carefully arranging mulch around the new bushes. She would have loved this, Sandra said, sitting back on her heels, using the house sale money to restore her garden. It felt right. I brushed dirt from my hands. Better than letting it sit in a bank account like the inheritance did. The sound of a car pulling up made us both turn. Roberto stepped out carrying his portfolio and wearing a paint-splattered t-shirt. Sorry I'm late, he called out. Class ran over. You're just in time for lunch, I replied, leading them both inside. The kitchen still smelled like my grandmother's recipes, though now my attempts at her famous lasagna filled the oven. Mom wanted me to give you this, Roberto said, pulling an envelope from his bag as we settled around the kitchen table. Inside was a check, not for the full amount they'd taken, but significant nonetheless. She's been selling her jewellery, he explained. Says she doesn't need the reminders of who she used to be. Sandra examined the check. That's got to be at least 20 pieces from her collection. 23? A voice said from the doorway. We all turned to see Aaliyah standing there, looking different in simple slacks and a sweater. May I come in? I nodded, watching as she took in the kitchen's transformation. The fresh paint, the new herbs growing in the window, the life returning to my grandmother's space. Bruce called, she said, accepting the coffee Sandra offered. He's agreed to sell the Mercedes. Says he wants to contribute to making things right. And Nigel? I asked quietly. Starting his new job next week, teaching high school economics. She smiled slightly. Says he wants to help young people understand money better than he did. Roberto opened his portfolio, spreading his latest works across the table. Vibrant paintings captured moments of our family drama. Aaliyah in the hospital, Bruce standing alone in an empty house, me in the garden bringing life back to dead earth. These are for my final project, he explained. The professor says art should tell truth, even when it hurts. Speaking of truth, Aaliyah reached into her purse. I found these while sorting through my things. She laid out old photographs. My grandmother at my college graduation, at family dinners, always watching, always wise. She knew, you know, I said, touching one photo gently, about the kind of people you all were. She told me to be careful, but I thought love would be enough. Love without respect is just control, Sandra murmured, quoting my grandmother's favourite saying. The timer dinged, and I pulled the lasagna from the oven. It wasn't perfect. The edges were a bit too brown, the cheese not quite melted right, but it was honest work, my own attempt at carrying forward a legacy. I've been thinking, Aaliyah said as I served the plates, about what your grandmother taught you about money, about worth. I spent so long trying to appear valuable that I forgot how to actually be valuable. That's why you took the inheritance, Roberto asked. She nodded slowly. It was never really about the money. It was about what it represented. Success, security, respect. All the things I thought I could buy. But you can't, I said. Those things have to be earned. Like trust? She met my eyes. Like trust, I agreed. Sandra raised her glass. To earning things honestly. To Grandma's garden, Roberto added. To new growth, Aaliyah whispered. I looked around the table, at Sandra's unwavering friendship, at Roberto's brave new path, at Aaliyah's humble attempts at redemption. The inheritance was gone, but something else had grown in its place. Understanding, perhaps. Or wisdom. My phone lit up with a text from Nigel. The divorce papers are final. Thank you for teaching me about consequences. I showed the message to Sandra, who squeezed my hand. You okay? Yeah, I said, realizing I meant it. Some things have to break before they can heal properly. Roberto looked up from his plate. Like bones. Like trust, Aaliyah answered softly. Like family. Outside, the roses caught the afternoon light, their new blooms promising future gardens, future growth. My grandmother had always said that money was like water. It could nourish growth or drown you depending on how you used it. I have something else for you, Aaliyah said, pulling out another envelope. Your grandmother's recipes. I found them in Nigel's things. They belong here with you. I opened the envelope, recognizing the familiar handwriting. At the bottom of each recipe, my grandmother had written little notes, wisdom disguised as cooking tips. Remember, I read aloud from the lasagna recipe. The secret ingredient isn't in the sauce. It's in the love you put into making it right. Sandra laughed. She always did have a way of making everything a life lesson. She still does, I said, looking around at my imperfect healing family. She still does.
The text message wasn't meant for me. That's how I discovered my husband was sleeping with my best friend. I'm Bethany, and until 3 minutes ago, I thought I had it all. A successful business partnership, a loving marriage of 8 years, and a tight-knit circle of friends. Amazing how one misplaced message can shatter everything you believe in. Sorry, baby. Had to pretend to work late again. Beth bought it like always. See you at our spot in 30, eh? My hands trembled as I set Amir's phone back on his desk. He'd left it there while showering, probably feeling secure that I'd never snoop. And I hadn't been snooping. I'd only picked it up when it kept buzzing with notifications. The bathroom door clicked open. I forced myself to breathe normally, scrolling through a random document on my laptop as Amir walked into our home office. Hey, love, he said, kissing the top of my head. Working late again? The irony made my stomach turn. Just finishing some contracts, I managed. You heading out? Yeah, emergency meeting with Samuel about the Morrison account. The lie rolled off his tongue so easily. Don't wait up. I watched him grab his phone, my mind racing. Vada. It had to be Vada. The pieces were falling into place. The late meetings, the business trips, the way they looked at each other during company events. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I called Quinn. I need you to come over, now. What's wrong? Quinn's voice sharpened with concern. Just come, please. 20 minutes later, we sat in my kitchen, a bottle of wine between us. I showed her the text I'd photographed with my phone. "That snake," Quinn hissed. "I'll kill them both." "No," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "I have a better idea." I pulled out my laptop and opened our company's operating agreement. 3 years ago, when Amir, Vata, and I had merged our businesses, we'd included a clause that seemed insignificant at the time. If any partner engaged in activities damaging to the company's reputation, their shares could be forcibly bought out at a preset value. "Look at this," I showed Quinn. "They think they're being clever, sneaking around behind my back, but they have no idea what's coming." "What are you planning?" I pulled up our company's financial records. "First, I need to talk to Samuel. He's been handling our accounts, and I bet he knows more than he's letting on." "Samuel, can you trust him?" "He's been trying to warn me for weeks. All those casual conversations about irregular expenses, suggesting I take a closer look at the books. I was too blind to see it." My phone buzzed. A text from Allison, Amir's sister. "Dinner this weekend? Haven't seen you in ages." Perfect. Allison had always been closer to me than to her own brother. She'd be devastated when she found out, but for now, she could be an unwitting source of information. "I'm gonna play the fool," I told Quinn. "Let them think they're winning. Meanwhile, I'll be documenting everything. The affairs, the suspicious financial transactions, all of it." Quinn leaned forward. "And then what?" I smiled, though it felt more like baring my teeth. "They're throwing that ridiculous party next month. You know, the one where they're planning to announce my stepping down from the company. Let's just say it won't go quite the way they're expecting." "Beth," Quinn hesitated. "Are you sure about this? You could just confront them, get a divorce, walk away." I shook my head. "They're not just trying to humiliate me, Quinn. They're trying to take everything I've built. My company, my reputation, my life." I took a deep breath. "I won't let them." My phone buzzed again. Amir. "Meeting running late. Don't wait up. Love you." I typed back quickly. "No problem, honey. Take your time." Quinn raised an eyebrow. "You're scary when you're plotting revenge. You know that?" "I'm not plotting revenge," I corrected her, closing my laptop. "I'm ensuring karma arrives right on schedule." As Quinn left that night, I stood in my empty house, feeling strangely calm. The initial shock and pain were still there, but they'd been pushed aside by something stronger, determination. Amir and Vada thought they were so clever, playing their little games. They had no idea they were about to learn a vital lesson. Never underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. I picked up my phone and texted Samuel. "We need to talk. Tomorrow, 7 a.m., usual coffee shop. Come alone." His response was immediate. "Finally, I've been waiting for this conversation." Samuel was already waiting when I arrived at the coffee shop, 2 steaming cups on the table. His usual crisp suit looked wrinkled, like he'd slept in it. "You look terrible," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Been up all night reviewing the books." He pushed a folder toward me. "You finally saw the messages? How long have you known?" He rubbed his face. "About the affair? 3 months. About the money? That's more recent." I opened the folder and my breath caught. Page after page of suspicious transactions, all authorized by Vada, all just under the threshold that would require my signature. "They've been siphoning money into a separate account," Samuel explained. "Small amounts, but it adds up. Nearly $500,000 so far." "Show me everything." For the next hour, Samuel walked me through their scheme. While I'd been focused on expanding our client base, Vada had been systematically undermining our financial stability. Amir had provided cover, distracting me with fake crises while she worked. My phone buzzed. "Quinn, turn on channel 7 now." I pulled out my tablet, and Samuel leaned in to watch. There was Vada, being interviewed about women in business. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. And sometimes the hardest part is knowing when to step aside, Vada was saying, her practiced smile perfect for the cameras. Some people just aren't cut out for leadership. Samuel swore under his breath. They're setting the stage. The party next month. They're planning to force you out publicly. I know, I closed the folder. But they made a mistake. What's that? They forgot who taught them everything they know about business. I pulled out my own folder. Remember that merger agreement you helped draft 3 years ago? His eyes widened as he read. The reputation clause, but can you prove the affair? Better. I showed him my phone displaying a banking app. I can prove the embezzlement. Quinn's been tracking their private accounts. They've been careless. Jesus, Beth. He looked impressed. You've been busy. I learned from the best. Remember that hostile takeover case you handled last year? He grinned. The one where we caught the CEO. With his own paper trail, I finished. Exactly. My phone buzzed again. Amir. Lunch today? Miss you. I showed Samuel the message. They think they're so clever. What's your next move? First, I need to talk to Allison. She handles their personal investments. She just doesn't know she's been helping them hide money. Be careful, Samuel warned. One wrong move and they'll know you're on to them. Trust me, they won't suspect a thing. I stood up. I've got lunch with my loving husband to get to. At the restaurant, Amir was already waiting, looking perfectly put together in his designer suit. The sight of him made my stomach turn, but I smiled as I sat down. Sorry I'm late, honey. Got caught up with Samuel reviewing some contracts. Amir's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Samuel, what contracts? Oh, just routine stuff. I waved dismissively. Actually, I wanted to talk about the party next month. Vada mentioned wanting to make some kind of announcement. Did she? His voice was carefully neutral. I hadn't heard. I took a sip of water. Well, I was thinking of making an announcement of my own. What kind of announcement? It's a surprise. I smiled sweetly. But I think everyone will be very interested. For a moment, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. Then his phone buzzed, and I knew without looking who it was. Work? I asked innocently. Yeah, sorry. He was already standing. Rain check on lunch? This is urgent. Of course, honey. Give Vada my best. He froze for a split second before recovering. What makes you think it's Vada? Just a guess. She always seems to need you urgently these days. I watched him hurry away, then pulled out my phone to text Quinn. They're panicking. Time for phase 2. Quinn replied immediately. Allison's expecting you at 3. She has no idea what's coming. I gathered my things, leaving cash for the untouched lunch. In 3 weeks, they would try to destroy everything I'd built. They thought they were the predators, but they were about to learn they were actually the prey. My phone buzzed one more time. Samuel, just found something else in the books. You're going to want to see this. I smiled. The pieces were falling into place perfectly. Sometimes karma needs a little help arriving on schedule, and I was more than happy to assist. Allison's penthouse office had a view of the city that usually took my breath away. Today, I barely noticed it. She was hunched over her desk, surrounded by investment portfolios, including the ones she managed for Amir and Vada. Beth! She jumped up to hug me. I've missed you. How are you holding up with all the company drama? Drama? I kept my voice carefully neutral. The restructuring? Amir mentioned you might be stepping back soon. She frowned, though he was weirdly vague about it. Actually, that's why I'm here. I sat down, pulling out the documents Samuel had given me. I need your expertise on something. Of course. What are sisters for? She beamed, reminding me why this was going to hurt so much. Allison had always treated me more like family than Amir ever had. These transactions, I spread the papers across her desk. What do you make of them? She studied them, her expression growing increasingly troubled. These are from accounts I manage, but I didn't authorize these transfers. No, I said softly. Vada did, using your credentials. What? She grabbed her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. That's impossible. Only I have access to... Oh, God. I watched as the color drained from her face. When did you last change your passwords, Allison? 6 months ago, when we updated our security protocols. She looked up, horror dawning. Amir helped me set up the new system, and now your credentials have been used to move money into offshore accounts. I slid another document across the desk. Accounts that, coincidentally, belong to your brother and his girlfriend. Girlfriend? Allison's voice cracked. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone, showing her the text messages I'd photographed. I'm sorry, Allison. I really am. She read them, hands shaking. That son of a bitch. That absolute... She stopped, looking up sharply. They used my credentials. I could go to jail for this. No, I said firmly. You won't, because you're going to help me stop them. Her laugh was bitter. How? They've already moved the money. But they haven't spent it. I smiled. And more importantly, they haven't filed the paperwork for next quarter's taxes. Paperwork that requires your signature. Understanding dawned in her eyes. If I don't sign, their whole house of cards collapses. I leaned forward, but we need to time it right. My phone buzzed. Samuel. Meeting with board members set for party night. Everything in place. The party, Allison said, watching me text back. That's when they're planning to force you out, isn't it? That's what they think. I showed her the company agreement, but they forgot about this clause. And now, thanks to their creative accounting using your credentials, we can prove they've damaged the company's reputation. They'll lose everything, she whispered. They already decided to lose everything, I corrected her. They just didn't realize they'd be the ones paying the price. Allison stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the city. What do you need me to do? For now, nothing. Sign the tax documents like normal. But the night of the party, I handed her a USB drive. You'll know when to use this. She took it, her hand steady now. They're my family, Beth. And what am I? She turned, tears in her eyes but determination in her voice. You're my sister, the one who actually deserves the title. My phone buzzed again, Vada this time. Dinner tomorrow, need to discuss party details. I showed Allison the message. Looks like your brother's girlfriend wants to plan my farewell party. Go, Allison said. Let them think everything's fine. I'll handle things on my end. As I stood to leave, she grabbed my arm. Beth, make it hurt. I hugged her tightly. That's the plan. Outside, I texted Quinn. Allison's in. Everything's set. Quinn replied. Vada's been calling around, trying to get dirt on you. Should I be worried? Let her dig. I texted back. She won't find anything, but I found something very interesting in her past. What? Let's just say this isn't the first company she's tried to steal, but it will be the last. I got into my car, checking my calendar. 2 weeks until the party. 2 weeks until they tried to destroy me. 2 weeks until they learned what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. My phone buzzed one last time. Amir. Working late again. Don't wait up. I smiled as I typed, No problem, honey. Sweet dreams. The pieces were all in place. Now it was just a matter of waiting for the right moment to strike. Dinner with Vada was an exercise in restraint. She sat across from me at her favorite upscale restaurant, sipping wine and discussing party details as if she wasn't sleeping with my husband. I was thinking we should invite the entire board, she said, scrolling through her phone. Make it a real celebration. Of what exactly? I asked innocently. She looked up, that practiced smile never wavering. Your years of service, of course. Everyone should hear about how much you've contributed. My phone buzzed under the table. Quinn, just got the files from Samuel. You need to see these now. Excuse me, I said, standing. Bathroom break. In the privacy of the restroom, I called Quinn. Remember how we wondered where Vada got her startup money? Quinn's voice was electric with excitement. Well, Samuel found her old business records. She did exactly this before, married her business partner, then tried to push him out of the company. Let me guess, it worked? Better. The guy disappeared. Just vanished one day, leaving everything to her. The police investigated but couldn't prove anything. I felt a chill. Send everything to Allison. She'll know what to do with it. Back at the table, Vada was typing furiously on her phone. I caught a glimpse of Amir's name before she put it away. Everything okay? I asked. Perfect. She waved the waiter over. More wine? Actually, I had a question about the quarterly reports, I said casually. Some of the numbers seem off. Her smile flickered for just a moment. Oh? Probably nothing. I'll have Samuel look into it. Samuel? She set her glass down too hard. He's been asking a lot of questions lately. Has he? I hadn't noticed. My phone buzzed again. Samuel. Board meeting set for tomorrow. They're making their move early. Something wrong? Vada asked, watching my face. Not at all. I stood up. But I should go. Big day tomorrow, right? Her eyes narrowed slightly. Right. Outside, I called Samuel immediately. They're calling an emergency board meeting, he confirmed, trying to force a vote before the party. Perfect, I smiled into the phone. Is everything ready? Just got confirmation from the SEC. They'll be there. Good. And the other thing? Quinn found 3 more ex-business partners, all with similar stories, all willing to testify. I got into my car just as another text came through. Amir, where are you? We need to talk. I drove home to find him pacing in our living room. Have a nice dinner? He asked, voice tight. Lovely. Vada sends her love. He flinched. Beth, we need to discuss the company's future. Funny, that's exactly what I was going to say. I sat down calmly. Board meeting tomorrow, right? How did you know? I pulled out my laptop. The same way I know about these. I turned the screen toward him, showing the financial records. His face went pale. Those are confidential. So is my marriage, but that didn't stop you. Beth, save it. I stood up. See you at the meeting. My phone buzzed as I walked upstairs. Allison. SEC documents filed. Everything's ready. I texted back. Perfect. How's our other project? Police are very interested in Vada's past. Very interested. In our bedroom, I packed a small bag while Amir shouted through the door. I had no intention of staying here tonight. Quinn was waiting at her place with wine and takeout. You should have seen his face, I told her, settling onto her couch. He actually thought I didn't know. Men always underestimate us, she said, pouring generous glasses. What time's the meeting tomorrow? 9 a.m. Vada thinks they have the votes to force me out. But 3 board members owe me favors, big ones. I smiled. And they're very interested in keeping their own creative accounting private. My phone lit up. Samuel. SEC agents confirmed for 9:30. Should be perfect timing. Quinn raised her glass. To karma. To karma, I agreed. And to always keeping receipts. Later that night, as Quinn slept on the couch, I sat on her balcony watching the city lights. Tomorrow would change everything. Amir and Vada thought they were about to win. They had no idea they were walking into their own destruction. My phone buzzed one last time. Vada. Looking forward to tomorrow. Time for some changes. I typed back. Me too. Time for everything to come out in the open. The pieces were set. The trap was ready. In less than 12 hours, they would learn the true cost of betrayal, and I would be there to watch them fall. The boardroom was silent except for the gentle hum of the air conditioning. I sat at my usual place, watching Amir and Vada exchange confident glances across the table. They thought this was their moment of triumph. "Before we begin," I said pleasantly, "I'd like to introduce some guests." The door opened. 2 men in suits entered, followed by Samuel and Allison. "Who are they?" Vada demanded, her smile slipping. "SEC investigators," I replied. "They're very interested in our company's financial records." Amir stood up so quickly his chair nearly toppled. "This meeting is private." "Sit down, Mr. Wade," one of the agents said. "We have a warrant." The board members shifted uncomfortably. I could see the panic spreading across Vada's face as Samuel began distributing folders. "What you're looking at," Samuel explained, "is evidence of systematic fraud and embezzlement." "These accusations are ridiculous," Vada snapped, but her hands were shaking as she opened the folder. "Are they?" Allison stepped forward. "Because those transactions were made using my credentials that only 2 other people had access to." The color drained from Amir's face. "Allison, what are you doing?" "The right thing. Finally." She turned to the board. "My brother and Ms. Jenkins have been stealing from this company for months, and that's not all." I nodded to Samuel, who pulled up a presentation on the screen. "This is interesting," he said, clicking through documents. "Ms. Jenkins has quite a history of similar situations. 3 previous companies, 3 previous partners, all mysteriously pushed out or disappeared." "You can't prove anything," Vada hissed, but the board members were already murmuring among themselves. My phone buzzed. "Quinn, police just arrived, ready when you are." "Actually," I said, standing up, "we can prove everything, including the affair." Amir flinched. "Beth, please." "Save it." I turned to the board. Article 7.3 of our company agreement states that any partner engaging in activities damaging to the company's reputation can be forcibly removed. I move to invoke that clause. "You don't have the votes," Vada said, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. "Don't I?" I looked around the table. "Mr. Phillips, Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Thompson, shall we discuss your own financial irregularities? The ones I agreed to overlook in exchange for your support today?" The 3 board members I'd named sat up straighter. One by one, they raised their hands. "The motion passes," Samuel announced. "Effective immediately, Amir Wade and Vada Jenkins are removed from their positions." "You can't do this," Vada shrieked, standing up. "This is my company, too." "Not anymore." I nodded to the SEC agents. "And I believe these gentlemen have some questions about those missing funds." The doors opened again, and 2 police officers entered. "Ms. Jenkins," one said, "we need you to come with us. We have some questions about your previous business partner's disappearance." I watched as they led Vada away, her perfect composure finally cracking. Amir tried to follow, but Allison blocked his path. "The divorce papers are being delivered to your office," she told him coldly. "I'd sign them quickly if I were you, before more evidence comes to light." The boardroom emptied quickly, leaving me alone with Samuel and Allison. "That went well," Samuel said, gathering the folders. "It's not over," I replied, checking my phone. "The party's still on for tonight." "You're still having the party?" Allison asked incredulously. "Of course. They wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone we know." I smiled. It would be rude to deny them their moment in the spotlight. My phone buzzed again. "Quinn, Vada's being booked now. Want to see the mugshot?" "Save it for the party," I texted back. "Beth," Allison said softly, "are you sure about this? They've lost everything already." "Not quite everything." I looked out the window at the city skyline, my city now. They still have their pride, for about 6 more hours. Samuel whistled low. Remind me never to cross you. Just remember, I said, gathering my things, karma doesn't always work on its own schedule. Sometimes it needs a little push. My phone lit up one last time. Amir. Please, we need to talk. I showed the message to Allison and Samuel. Looks like someone's desperate. What are you gonna say? Allison asked. I typed quickly. See you at the party, honey. Don't be late. You won't want to miss my speech. As we left the boardroom, I felt lighter than I had in months. Tonight, at the party they'd planned to destroy me, everyone would learn the truth. And tomorrow, I would begin rebuilding, stronger, wiser, and completely free of their shadows. Ready for tonight? Samuel asked as we reached the elevator. I smiled. I've been ready for this my entire life. The Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom sparkled with champagne glasses and forced smiles. Vada had chosen the venue weeks ago, planning to celebrate my downfall in style. Instead, she was spending the evening in police custody while I adjusted my red dress in the mirror. Ready? Quinn appeared behind me, looking stunning in black. Almost. I checked my phone. No new messages from Amir since his desperate plea earlier. Is everything set up? Screens are ready. Samuel has the presentation queued up. She handed me a champagne flute. Allison just texted. Amir's here, trying to convince people everything's fine. I stepped into the ballroom, and the whispers started immediately. News of the morning's board meeting hadn't spread widely yet, but people could sense something was off, especially since Vada was conspicuously absent. Beth! Amir hurried over, his smile strained. Can we please talk? Of course, honey. I raised my voice slightly. Would you like to discuss the embezzlement or the affair first? Several nearby conversations stopped abruptly. Amir grabbed my arm, trying to pull me aside. Don't make a scene, he hissed. Why not? Isn't that what this party was for? I pulled away from him. You and Vada planned quite the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Samuel's voice boomed through the speakers. If I could have your attention, please. The crowd turned toward the small stage where Samuel stood, remote control in hand. Behind him, large screens flickered to life. We're here tonight to celebrate truth and consequences, he continued, and nobody understands those better than our CEO, Beth. I made my way to the stage, feeling hundreds of eyes following me. Amir stood frozen in the crowd, his face ashen. Thank you all for coming, I said into the microphone. This party was originally planned as my farewell celebration, a chance for my husband and his girlfriend to publicly humiliate me before taking my company. The gasps were audible. On the screens, financial records began to appear. Instead, let's talk about what really happened. Samuel, would you do the honors? He clicked through the slides. Bank statements, transfer records, emails between Amir and Vada planning their takeover. And here's my personal favorite, I said as a police mugshot appeared on screen. This was taken of Vada just hours ago. Turns out she has quite the interesting history with making business partners disappear. Amir pushed through the crowd. Stop this. Why? I turned to face him. Isn't this what you wanted? Everyone gathered to witness a dramatic revelation? You're destroying everything. No, honey, you did that yourself. I nodded to Quinn, who pressed a button on her phone. The screens filled with text messages, hundreds of them between Amir and Vada, dating back months. Their plans, their mockery, their betrayal laid bare for everyone to see. I particularly like this one, I said, pointing to a message. Beth's too stupid to notice. She trusts me completely. That was you, right, darling? The crowd had gone completely silent. In the back, I saw Allison step forward, tears streaming down her face. You used my credentials, she said to Amir. Your own sister. You made me an accomplice to fraud. Allison, I can explain. Save it for your lawyer. She cut him off. The SEC has everything they need. I raised my champagne glass. A toast to truth, to karma, and to never underestimating a woman with access to good lawyers and better friends. The screens changed one final time, showing the morning's board meeting results. Amir's removal, Vada's arrest, my complete control of the company. Security, I called out pleasantly. Mr. Wade seems to be having trouble finding the exit. 2 guards appeared, moving toward Amir. He looked around wildly, but found no sympathy in the crowd of shocked faces. You won't get away with this, he snarled as they approached. I already have, I smiled. Oh, and honey, I've changed the locks at home. Your things are in storage. The address is in the divorce papers. As they led him out, the ballroom erupted in chatter. Quinn appeared at my side with a fresh glass of champagne. Now that, she said, was a party to remember. My phone buzzed. Samuel, police want to know if you'll testify about Vada's past activities. Tell them I'd be happy to, I texted back. The screens returned to their elegant party displays, but the damage was done. Every person in the room had witnessed Amir and Vada's downfall. Every business contact, every friend, every potential ally. Was it worth it? Quinn asked softly. I watched as Allison hugged Samuel, both of them looking relieved and exhausted. Ask me tomorrow, I replied, raising my glass. Tonight we celebrate. The party continued, but it was no longer a farewell. It was a beginning. The morning after the party, I walked into my office to find it already occupied. Amir sat in my chair looking disheveled in yesterday's suit. Security breach in the executive suite, I said into my phone. Send backup. Wait, he held up his hands. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. You have 2. I stayed by the door, hand on the handle. Starting now. I can fix this, he said desperately. The board, the money, everything. Just call off the SEC. Interesting offer. I checked my watch. Considering Vada's preliminary hearing starts in an hour. His face crumpled. You don't understand. If they dig too deep, they'll find what happened to her other partners. I pulled out my phone, showing him an email. Too late. The investigation's already connecting the dots. She said they left voluntarily. And you believed her? I laughed. Like she believed you when you said you'd handle me? Security appeared in the doorway. Amir stood up, straightening his jacket with trembling hands. You've ruined everything, he said. No, I survived everything. There's a difference. As they let him out, my phone buzzed. Quinn, turn on the news now. I flipped on the office TV just in time to see Vada being led into the courthouse, her designer outfit replaced by prison orange. The headline scrolled beneath, Tech CEO arrested, multiple fraud investigations opened. Samuel burst in without knocking. Have you seen? I'm watching it now. Not that. He handed me his tablet. This just came in from the forensic accountants. I scanned the document, my breath catching. Is this verified? Triple-checked. They didn't just steal from the company. They were setting you up to take the fall for everything. My phone rang. Allison, are you watching the news? Better. I'm reading the forensic report. Did you know? About their plan to frame you? No. Her voice cracked. But I just found something else. Remember that partner of Vada's who disappeared? They found him. I sat down hard. Alive? No. And Amir's fingerprints are all over the evidence. The office door opened again, Quinn this time, looking grim. Police are here, she said. They want to talk to you about Amir. I put Allison on speaker. Did you hear that? I'm on my way, she said. Don't say anything until I get there. 2 detectives entered my office, faces serious. Ms. Wade, we need to discuss your husband's whereabouts 3 years ago. Ex-husband, I corrected. and my lawyer's on her way. You might want to see this first. One detective placed a photo on my desk. It showed Amir and Vada, dated 3 years ago, before I'd even met either of them. They were standing over a man I recognized from the missing persons reports. They were working together even then. Samuel whispered. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you've won? Ask your friend Quinn about the night James disappeared. I showed Quinn the message. Her face went white. James was my brother, she said quietly. He disappeared after investigating a tech startup. I never knew until I saw Vada's picture in your company files. The pieces clicked into place. Quinn's help, her determination, her expertise in tracking financial fraud. It hadn't just been friendship driving her. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed proof. She wiped away tears. And now we have it. The detectives took notes as Quinn explained everything. By the time Allison arrived, they had enough to arrest both Amir and Vada for murder. It's over, Allison said, watching the detectives leave. Really over. My phone buzzed one last time. Samuel. Board wants to meet. They're talking acquisition offers. No, I texted back. This company stays mine. Quinn touched my arm. What now? I looked around my office, at Samuel's worried face, at Allison's tears, at Quinn's years of hidden pain. Now we rebuild, I said, but first we make sure justice is served, all of it. My phone lit up with news alerts. Amir had been arrested trying to flee the country. Vada was cooperating with authorities, turning on him to save herself. Karma, Quinn said softly. No, I replied. Justice, and it's not finished yet. I picked up my phone to call the district attorney. It was time to make sure every single one of their victims got closure, starting with Quinn's brother. The sun was setting over the city skyline, painting my office in shades of gold and shadow. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, watching Amir and Vada's mugshots on the news, I finally felt something I hadn't in months. Peace. The courtroom fell silent as the judge entered. I sat between Quinn and Allison, our hands linked together as we waited for the verdict. Across the aisle, Vada's expensive lawyer shifted nervously in his seat. In the matter of the state versus Vada Jenkins, the judge began, on the count of first-degree murder. Quinn's grip tightened on my hand. Guilty. The word echoed through the courtroom. In the front row, Vada crumpled, her perfect facade finally shattering completely. On the counts of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Each word felt like another brick being lifted from my shoulders. As they led Vada away, she turned to glare at me one last time. This isn't over, she spat. Actually, it is. Quinn stood up, her voice steady. That was for James. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Samuel appeared, creating a path through the crowd. Amir's plea deal just came through, he said as we reached the car. He's testifying against their entire network, multiple jurisdictions involved. My phone buzzed. A news alert showing Amir being led into another courthouse, head bowed, finally looking like the broken man he was. The company stock is up 15%, Allison said, checking her tablet. The market loves a justice story. Speaking of justice, Quinn pulled out an envelope. The insurance company finally settled James's case. They're funding a scholarship in his name for fraud investigators. I smiled. He would have loved that. Back at the office, I found a package waiting on my desk. Inside was a framed newspaper article. Tech CEO takes down criminal enterprise. Justice served. A little gift, Samuel said from the doorway. Thought your wall needed updating. It's perfect. I hung it next to my degrees, though we're not quite finished. The foundation? Quinn asked, entering with coffee. I nodded. The James Quinn Foundation for Corporate Accountability, using our resources to help other victims of corporate fraud. Using their seized assets to fund it, Allison added, joining us. Poetic justice. My phone lit up, a message from the district attorney. 5 more victims identified. Your testimony made the difference. You know, Samuel said, most people would just enjoy their victory. Most people didn't have front row seats to what corporate predators can do. I looked at Quinn. Or lose family to them. The intercom buzzed, my assistant. The new board members are here for orientation. Send them in, I replied, then turned to my team. Ready to build something better? They nodded, and we watched as the new board filed in. All women, all experts in corporate ethics and accountability. Welcome, I said. Let's talk about the future. As the meeting began, my phone buzzed one last time, a text from the prison warden. Ms. Jenkins requested a meeting. No, I typed back. She's exactly where she belongs. Quinn caught my eye across the conference table and smiled. We'd both found our closure, our justice, our peace. The new board members listened intently as I outlined our vision. Not just profit, but purpose. Not just success, but integrity. Not just business, but justice. This company was built on lies, I told them. We're going to rebuild it on truth. Outside my office window, the city stretched out before us, full of possibilities, opportunities, and yes, probably more predators like Amir and Vada. But now we were ready for them. To new beginnings, Allison raised her coffee cup. To justice, Quinn added. To family, Samuel said, looking at all of us. I looked around at these people who had become more than friends, more than colleagues. They were my true family, forged in fire and truth. To all of it, I said, and to remembering that karma doesn't just happen. Sometimes it needs a little help from people who aren't afraid to fight for what's right. The meeting began in earnest, plans taking shape for a future built on integrity rather than deception. Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. Inside, surrounded by my chosen family, I finally felt complete. Not because of revenge, though that had been sweet. Not because of victory, though that had been necessary. But because we'd turned our pain into purpose, our betrayal into justice, our loss into legacy. And that was the best revenge of all.
The text message glared at me from my phone screen. Dad doesn't want to see me anymore. My heart sank as I read those words from my 14-year-old stepdaughter, a girl I hadn't even known existed 3 months ago. I'm Jasmine, and this is how I discovered my perfect marriage was built on lies. It started with Edwin's strange behavior last summer. My usually attentive husband began disappearing for hours, claiming work emergencies. His phone would buzz constantly, and he'd step out of rooms to take calls. When I asked questions, he'd brush them off with that charming smile that made me fall in love with him 5 years ago. Then came the night I heard him arguing in his home office. Nina, you can't just spring this on me. His voice carried through the door. 14 years of silence, and now you want me involved? I pressed my ear against the wood, my stomach churning. She's my daughter too, he hissed. But you can't expect me to— Fine, I'll meet her. The door flew open and I stumbled backward. Edwin's face went pale. How much did you hear? He asked, running his fingers through his hair, his tell when he's nervous. Enough, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Who's Nina? And who's this daughter? He slumped onto our leather couch, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. I should have told you years ago, before we got married. Told me what, Edwin? I have a daughter, from a relationship before we met. Her name is Jordan. The room started spinning. A daughter? How old? 14. I did the math quickly. You were 24 when she was born, and you never told me? Nina and it was complicated. She didn't want me involved at first. Then when she reached out years later, I was already with you, and I couldn't find the right time. There's never a right time to tell your wife you've been hiding a child. I grabbed my keys. I need air. Where are you going? To Taylor's. Don't follow me. I drove to my best friend's house on autopilot, tears blurring my vision. Taylor opened her door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside. He has a teenage daughter, I sobbed into her shoulder, a whole other life I knew nothing about. That bastard, Taylor muttered, pouring me a glass of wine. What are you going to do? What can I do? There's an innocent girl involved now. I showed her the text message that had started it all. He's already screwing it up. Have you met her? No, but apparently Edwin promised to take her to dinner tonight and canceled last minute, again. My phone buzzed with another message from Jordan. Mom says I shouldn't bother trying anymore. You should meet her, Taylor said, reading over my shoulder. Someone needs to show that girl not all adults will let her down. I stared at my phone, fingers hovering over the keyboard. What if she hates me? I'm the replacement wife who didn't even know she existed. Then she hates you, but at least you tried. Taking a deep breath, I typed, Hi, Jordan. This is Jasmine, Edwin's wife. I just learned about you, and I'm so sorry about tonight. Would you like to meet for ice cream tomorrow? Just us? The response came quickly. Why do you care? You're not my mom. No, I'm not, but I'd like to know you if you'll let me. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally. Okay, but I picked the place. I showed Taylor the exchange, my hands shaking. What am I getting myself into? The right thing, she said, squeezing my shoulder. Someone needs to step up for this kid, and it clearly won't be Edwin. When I returned home that night, Edwin was waiting up. I can explain everything, he started. I held up my hand. Save it, I'm meeting Jordan tomorrow. What? No, let me handle this. Like you handled tonight? She's your daughter, Edwin, your flesh and blood, and you're treating her like an inconvenience. His face hardened. You don't understand the situation. No, I don't, because you lied to me for our entire relationship. I headed for the guest room, but I'm going to understand it, with or without your help. As I lay in bed that night, Jordan's text messages burned in my mind. I had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was certain. My life would never be the same. Jordan chose a small cafe downtown, and I spotted her immediately. She had Edwin's eyes. She sat hunched over her phone, dark hair falling like a curtain around her face, radiating that particular brand of teenage defensiveness I remembered from my own youth. Jordan? I approached slowly, like you would a spooked animal. I'm Jasmine. She looked up, eyes scanning me critically. You're prettier than I thought you'd be. I laughed, caught off guard by her bluntness. Thanks, I think. Is it okay if I sit? She shrugged, which I took as teenage speak for yes. So, I said, settling into the chair across from her, tell me about yourself. What's there to tell? I'm the secret kid your husband didn't want you to know about. Her words were sharp, but I caught the tremor in her voice. Hey, I leaned forward. You're not secret anymore, and I'm here because I want to be. The waitress arrived, saving us from the awkward silence. Jordan ordered a chocolate milkshake, and I got coffee. Mom says he used to visit sometimes, Jordan said suddenly, stirring her shake. When I was really little. Then he just stopped. My heart clenched. Would you like to tell me about your mom? She works a lot, 2 jobs. Jordan's voice turned defensive. She's doing her best. I'd like to meet her sometime, I said carefully. If that's okay with both of you. Jordan's head snapped up. Why? Because this situation affects all of us, and maybe we could handle it better together. She studied me for a long moment. Dad won't like that. Your dad doesn't get to dictate everything anymore. A ghost of a smile crossed her face, but then her phone buzzed. Her expression fell as she read the message. Let me guess. Edwin canceling again? She nodded, blinking rapidly. He promised to take me shopping this weekend, but apparently something came up at work. Give me your mom's number, I said, pulling out my phone. I'd like to talk to her. Jordan hesitated, then recited the number. I typed out a quick message. Hi, Nina, this is Jasmine, Edwin's wife. I'm with Jordan right now. Could we meet to talk? The response came quickly. My place, 7 p.m. tonight. I'll text you the address. Your mom agreed to meet, I told Jordan. Would you be okay with that? She shrugged again, but this time I caught a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Can I ask you something? She said quietly. Does he ever talk about me? The question gutted me. Honey, I didn't know about you until yesterday. But that's his failure, not yours. Mom says he's good at failing. She attempted a laugh, but it came out more like a sob. Without thinking, I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. To my surprise, she didn't pull away. That evening, I pulled up to a modest apartment complex. Nina opened the door before I could knock, a petite woman with Jordan's dark hair and tired eyes. "So you're the wife," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "Coffee?" "Please." The apartment was small but spotless, covered in Jordan's artwork and school certificates. Nina handed me a mug and sat across from me at her kitchen table. "Why are you really here, Jasmine?" "Because there's a 14-year-old girl who deserves better than what she's getting." Nina's shoulders sagged. "I've tried everything. Begging, threatening legal action, guilt trips. Nothing makes him step up." "Tell me everything," I said, "from the beginning." So she did. About meeting Edwin in college, their brief relationship, finding out she was pregnant. How he'd promised to co-parent but gradually disappeared. How he'd send checks sometimes, but they became increasingly sporadic. The worst part? Nina's voice cracked. He keeps getting Jordan's hopes up, makes promises, then breaks them. I've told him to either commit or stay away, but he won't do either. "That ends now," I said, my voice firm. "I'm done watching him hurt her." Nina studied me carefully. "Why do you care so much? You just found out about all this." "Because someone has to, and because every time Jordan looks at me with those hurt eyes, I see myself at 14, wondering why I wasn't enough for someone to stick around." Nina nodded slowly. "So what do you suggest?" "I think it's time Edwin faces consequences for his actions, real ones, and I have an idea, but I'll need your help." "I'm listening." As I outlined my plan, I saw something spark in Nina's eyes, hope, maybe, or vindication. Either way, I knew I'd found an ally in this mess. Edwin had no idea what was coming. "He did what?" I gripped my coffee mug tighter as Nina showed me the old text messages on her phone. "Told Jordan he was on a business trip in Seattle that weekend," Nina said, scrolling through the messages. "Meanwhile, we were at the hospital because she broke her arm and I couldn't reach him. That was 2 months after our honeymoon in Maui," I said, feeling sick. "He wasn't in Seattle. We were hosting a dinner party at our house." Nina's bitter laugh echoed through her kitchen. "Classic Edwin. He's got excuses lined up like dominoes." My phone buzzed. Edwin asking where I was. I ignored it. "Look at this one." Nina pulled up another message. "Last Christmas, he promised Jordan a laptop for her schoolwork. Said he'd bring it by on New Year's Day. Let me guess. Never showed? Worse. Showed up 3 weeks later with some cheap tablet, acting like he was father of the year." Nina's hands shook slightly. Jordan pretended to be thrilled, but I heard her crying that night. I stood up abruptly, pacing the small kitchen. "I need to confront him." "Be careful," Nina warned. "When backed into a corner, Edwin gets creative with his lies. He'll try to turn this around on us. Let him try." I pulled out my own phone, scrolling through photos. "See this? Our vacation to Mexico last spring. He told you he couldn't afford child support that month because business was slow." Nina's eyes narrowed at the image of Edwin on a yacht, champagne in hand. Son of a... A key turned in the lock and Jordan walked in, stopping short when she saw us together. "Hey, honey," Nina said quickly. "How was study group?" "Fine." Jordan's eyes darted between us. "What's going on?" I shared a look with Nina before speaking. "We're trying to understand some things about your dad's behavior." "You mean why he's a liar?" Jordan dropped her backpack with a thud. "I already know that part." "Jordan," Nina started, but her daughter cut her off. "No, Mom, I'm not stupid. I see his Instagram posts when he says he's too busy to see me. I know he went to Elia's wedding even though he told me he was sick that weekend." I felt my anger rising. "He told you he was sick during Aaliyah's wedding?" "Yeah, but I saw the photos online. He looked pretty healthy doing the chicken dance." I pulled out my phone again, dialing Edwin's number. He answered on the first ring. "Jasmine, where are you? I've been worried." "Save it." I cut him off. "I'm with Nina and Jordan. We need to talk. Now." "You're what?" His voice turned cold. Who gave you the right to lie to your daughter about being sick during your sister's wedding?" "Silence. Come to Nina's. Now." Or I swear to God, Edwin, I'm calling Alea next and telling her everything. Don't you dare. 20 minutes. I hung up. Jordan stared at me, wide-eyed. He's actually coming? He better. I turned to Nina. Is that okay, having him here? She nodded grimly. It's time. 19 minutes later, Edwin's car pulled up. He stormed into the apartment like he owned it. What kind of ambush is this? He demanded. Sit down, I said quietly. I will not. Sit down. Something in my voice made him comply. Now, I continued, explain to your daughter why you lied about being sick during Alea's wedding. I didn't. That's not. He looked at Jordan, who was fighting back tears. Princess, you have to understand. Don't call me that, she whispered. You lost that right. Show him the hospital messages, I told Nina. As Nina pulled up the texts, I watched Edwin's face. I saw the moment he realized he couldn't talk his way out of this one. I was trying to protect everyone, he attempted. Protect who? I asked. Your image? Your comfort? Certainly not your daughter. You don't understand the pressure. The pressure of what? Nina exploded. Being a decent human being, showing up for your child. God forbid you have to sacrifice a dinner party to be there when your daughter breaks her arm. Edwin stood up. I don't have to listen to this. No, you don't, I agreed. But if you walk out that door, I'm calling Alea, then your parents, then every friend who thinks you're such a stand-up guy. Your choice. He sank back into the chair, deflated. Dad. Jordan's voice was barely audible. Why don't you want me? The question hung in the air like smoke, choking us all. Edwin opened his mouth, closed it, then stood up again. This time, he walked out. I moved to follow him, but Nina caught my arm. Let him go. We've seen everything we needed to see. Jordan's sob broke through the silence, and I wrapped my arms around her as she cried. I've got you, I whispered. We've got you. Over her head, I met Nina's eyes. The time for gentle confrontation was over. Edwin wanted to play games? Fine. Game on. He's been telling everyone you're having a mental breakdown, Taylor said, sliding into our usual booth at the diner. Alea called me this morning, worried sick about you. I stirred my coffee, unsurprised. Of course he has. Can't have people knowing the truth. Speaking of truth, Taylor pulled out her phone. Look what I found on his sister's Facebook from 3 years ago. The photo showed Edwin at a father-daughter dance with his niece. The caption read, Best uncle ever, always there for his favorite girl. That was the weekend Jordan had her piano recital, I said. He told Nina he was out of town for work. Want me to show Alea? Not yet. I leaned forward. First, we need to gather everything. Every lie, every missed event, every broken promise. Build a case so strong he can't wiggle out of it. The bell above the diner door chimed, and Alea herself walked in. My heart jumped. I hadn't seen Edwin's sister since everything started. Jasmine? She spotted us and hurried over. Thank God. Edwin said you weren't taking his calls, that you were acting erratic. Sit down, Alea, I said quietly. There's something you need to know about your brother. Her face paled as I told her everything, showing her the evidence Nina had collected over the years. When I finished, she sat in stunned silence. I have a niece, she finally whispered. All this time? A niece your brother has been systematically disappointing for 14 years, Taylor added. That father-daughter dance, Alea said slowly. He insisted on taking my Emma because he said he never had a daughter of his own. He looked me in the eye and... She grabbed her purse and stood up. I need to see her. Alea, wait. No, you don't understand. Every Christmas, every birthday, she should have been there, with family, with me. Her voice cracked. Take me to her, please. I texted Nina, who agreed to meet us at her apartment. When we arrived, Jordan was doing homework at the kitchen table. She looked up, confused at the stranger in tears staring at her. Jordan, I said gently, this is your Aunt Alea. Oh my God, Alea breathed. You look just like our mom. Jordan stood awkwardly, unsure what to do. Alea stepped forward, then stopped herself. I'm so sorry, she said. I'm so sorry I didn't know, that I wasn't there. It's not your fault, Jordan mumbled. No, but I'm going to make it right. Alea turned to Nina. Every family gathering from now on, you both are invited. No more secrets, no more exclusion. Nina's eyes welled up. That would mean a lot to Jordan. My phone buzzed. Edwin calling again. This time I answered and put it on speaker. Jasmine, this has gone too far, he started. You need to come home so we can... She's with me, Edwin. Alea cut in. At Nina's apartment, with my niece. Silence. Your niece, she continued, voice shaking. The one you've been hiding from us for 14 years. The one you abandoned to take Emma to father-daughter dances. Alea, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're a coward. She looked at Jordan, who was watching with wide eyes. But I'm not, and I'm done keeping your secrets. She hung up before he could respond. Within minutes, his text messages started flooding in. Don't do this. We can talk about this. You're destroying our family. Alea read them aloud, laughing bitterly. He destroyed it himself, lie by lie. What happens now? Jordan asked quietly. Now, I said, we show everyone exactly who your father is. No more hiding, no more excuses. He'll try to stop us, Nina warned. Let him try. Alea pulled out her phone. I'm calling Mom and Dad right now. They deserve to know they have another grandchild. As Alea stepped into the hallway to make the call, Taylor squeezed my hand. You okay? I nodded, watching Jordan show Nina her homework. For the first time in weeks, I actually am. Everything's finally clear. What do you mean? I mean I'm done being married to a man who could do this to his own child. I twisted my wedding ring off my finger. I'm done being complicit in his lies. Nina looked up, meeting my eyes. She nodded slightly, understanding passing between us. Edwin thought he was losing control of his narrative. He had no idea what was coming next. The truth was about to become very, very public. Edwin's parents arrived at Nina's apartment like a storm, his mother Barbara bursting through the door with tears streaming down her face. Where is she? Where's my granddaughter? Jordan stood frozen in the kitchen doorway as Barbara rushed toward her, enveloping her in a hug. Edwin's father Robert stood back, his face ashen. You look just like Edwin's grandmother, Barbara sobbed. All this time, all these years. Mom, give her some space, Alea said gently, pulling her mother back. This is overwhelming for everyone. Robert finally spoke, his voice rough. Nina, we had no idea. The things Edwin told us about you. What did he tell you? I asked, though I already knew the answer. That you didn't want us involved, Barbara said, wiping her eyes. That you threatened legal action if he told anyone about Jordan. Nina's laugh was hollow. Of course he did. Anything to make himself look like the victim. I have proof, I said, pulling out my phone. Every message, every broken promise, every lie. Would you like to see? They did. For the next hour, we showed them everything. The missed birthdays, the canceled plans, the elaborate excuses. With each revelation, Robert's face grew darker. The cruise we took last summer, Barbara whispered. He said he couldn't afford child support because business was slow, but he paid for our entire family to... That's not even the worst part, Alea cut in. Tell them about the father-daughter dance, Jasmine. By the time we finished, Robert was pacing the small living room. Where is he? Where's my son? Probably at our house, I said. Hiding. Not anymore. Robert pulled out his phone. Edwin, family emergency. Nina's apartment, now. No excuses. 20 minutes later, Edwin walked in, stopping short at the sight of his entire family. What is this? He demanded. This, Robert's voice was deadly quiet, is the moment you face what you've done. Dad, whatever they told you. Sit down. Robert pointed to the empty chair. And for once in your life, tell the truth. Edwin sat, his eyes darting around the room. I can explain everything. Explain what? Barbara's voice shook. How you kept our granddaughter from us? How you chose vacations over child support? Or how about, Alea added, how you took Emma to that dance instead of attending Jordan's recital? I was trying to protect everyone, Edwin started. Protect us from what? Jordan's voice cut through the room. She stood straighter, braver than I'd ever seen her. From loving me? Princess, I told you not to call me that. She stepped forward. You know what hurts the most? Not the broken promises or the lies. It's that you had love to give. You just chose not to give it to me. The room fell silent. Edwin's face crumpled. I wasn't ready, he whispered. I wasn't ready to be a father. But you were ready to be an uncle? Alea scoffed. Ready to play dad to my daughter while ignoring your own? That was different. How? Nina demanded. How was it different? Because she wasn't supposed to happen, Edwin shouted, then immediately went pale as he realized what he'd said. Jordan's intake of breath was audible. Barbara covered her mouth in horror. Get out, I said quietly. Jasmine, get out. I stood up. Get out of this apartment, get out of my life, and get out of Jordan's life unless you're ready to be the father she deserves. You can't, she can. Robert cut in. And so can we. You're not welcome at family gatherings until you make this right. Really right. Edwin looked around the room, searching for an ally and finding none. Finally, he stood up. This isn't over, he said. You're right, I replied. Divorce papers will be ready Monday. He slammed the door on his way out. As soon as he was gone, Jordan collapsed into Nina's arms, sobbing. I'm so sorry, baby, Nina whispered, stroking her hair. Barbara moved to embrace them both. We're here now. We're not going anywhere. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Robert. Thank you, he said gruffly, for bringing this family together, even as it falls apart. It's not falling apart, Alea said. It's rebuilding, the right way this time. Looking around the room, at Nina comforting Jordan, at Barbara making plans for family dinners, at Robert wiping away tears, I realized Alea was right. Sometimes things have to break completely before they can be fixed properly. And Edwin? He'd just broken everything beyond his ability to manipulate it back together. The truth was out. All of it. And there was no going back. The divorce papers sat on Edwin's desk like a bomb waiting to detonate. He stared at them, then at me, his face cycling through shock, anger, and finally, desperation. You're really doing this? He asked. Sign them. We can work this out, he pleaded. Couples therapy, family counseling, whatever you want. It's not about what I want anymore. I pushed the papers closer. It's about what Jordan needs. Jordan? He laughed bitterly. The girls turned my whole family against me. My own parents won't take my calls. You did that yourself. His office door opened, and Alea walked in without knocking. Is he still making excuses? What are you doing here? Edwin stood up. This is between me and my wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife, I corrected. And Alea's here as a witness, along with some other people. On cue, Nina walked in with Jordan. Behind them came Robert and Barbara, then Taylor. Edwin's face went pale. What is this? An intervention? Actually, yes. Alea perched on his desk. See, big brother, we've been talking about all the lies, all the manipulation, and we think it's time you heard what that's done to everyone in this room. I don't have to listen to this. Yes, you do, Robert's voice boomed. Sit down, son. Edwin sat. Barbara went first, pulling out a photo album. Every Christmas, every birthday, every family vacation. There's a hole in these photos where Jordan should have been. You stole those memories from us. Mom, I'm not finished. She turned to Jordan. I missed 14 years of your life. I can never get those back. Alea stepped forward. Remember Emma's dance recital last spring, when you played Proud Uncle? That same day, Jordan was competing in a debate tournament. She won first place, but you weren't there to see it. How was I supposed to be in two places? You weren't, Nina cut in. You knew about Jordan's tournament months in advance. You chose the recital because it was easier, because Emma didn't come with complications and guilt. Edwin's eyes darted around the room, looking for escape. My turn, Taylor said. Remember telling me Jordan's mom was unstable? That she was keeping you from your daughter? I believed you. I comforted you. Meanwhile, Nina was working 2 jobs to support the child you abandoned. I sent money. Sometimes, Nina corrected, when it was convenient, when it didn't interfere with your vacations or your image. Finally, Jordan stepped forward. My heart ached at how adult she looked in that moment. You know what I tell people when they ask about my dad? She said quietly. I tell them I don't have one, because that hurts less than explaining that my father chooses not to be in my life. Jordan, please. I used to make up stories, she continued. Tell my friends you were a secret agent or working overseas. Anything was better than the truth, that you just didn't want me. Edwin's shoulders slumped. That's not true. Then prove it, I said, sliding the divorce papers closer. Sign these, and then prove it. Be a real father. No more lies, no more excuses. What are you saying? I'm saying sign the papers, then make a choice. Either be fully present in Jordan's life, reliable, honest, committed, or stay away completely. She deserves better than your half-hearted attempts. Edwin picked up the pen, his hand shaking. If you sign, Alea added, we'll help you rebuild these relationships. But if you keep lying, keep manipulating, you'll lose us all. He looked around the room one last time, perhaps hoping someone would save him from this moment. No one did. The scratch of pen on paper was deafening. Now what? He asked, voice small. Now, Robert said, you start proving to your daughter that she matters, that she's not a mistake or an obligation, but a gift you've been taking for granted. And if you fail again, Barbara added, if you hurt her one more time, you'll answer to all of us. Edwin nodded slowly, finally looking defeated. Jordan, he said softly, I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but you're right, she cut him off. It's not enough, but it's a start. As everyone filed out of the office, I lingered behind. Edwin looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw real remorse in his eyes. I really messed up, didn't I? Yes, I said simply, but you can choose to do better. For her sake, I hope you do. I walked out, leaving him alone with his choices and their consequences. In the hallway, Jordan waited with Nina. You okay? I asked her. She nodded, then surprised me with a hug. Thank you, she whispered, for making him face it. Sometimes I realized the biggest act of love is forcing someone to face their failures, and sometimes the greatest revenge is simply telling the truth. 3 months after the intervention, I sat in the bleachers watching Jordan's volleyball game. Nina was on one side of me, Barbara on the other. Alea sat behind us with Emma, who had become inseparable from her newfound cousin. He's late, Nina muttered, checking her phone. Again. Edwin had promised to be here, had sworn this time would be different. The game started. Jordan kept glancing at the gym entrance between serves. Did he at least text? Barbara asked. Nothing, I replied. Halfway through the first set, the gym door opened. Edwin walked in, trying to be subtle and failing miserably. Jordan missed her serve, her eyes locked on her father. 20 minutes late, Alea hissed. Better than last time, I guess. Edwin made his way to our section, but before he could sit down, Nina stood up. Outside, she said. Now. They walked out, leaving the rest of us to watch Jordan try to focus on her game. Through the gym windows, we could see Nina gesturing angrily. Should someone... Barbara started. No, I cut in. Nina needs this. 5 minutes later, they returned. Edwin's face was red, and Nina looked satisfied. What did you say to him? I whispered as she sat back down. That if he can't show up on time, don't show up at all. Jordan needs consistency, not half-hearted efforts. The game continued. Jordan's team won the first set, largely thanks to her serves. During the break, she jogged over to us. You came, she said to Edwin, her voice carefully neutral. I promised I would. He cleared his throat. You're playing really well. I'm team captain now. Since when? Since last month, Barbara cut in. When she led them to regionals. We were all there. Remember the video I sent you? Edwin shifted uncomfortably. Right. Sorry, I've been busy with work. Don't, Jordan interrupted. Just don't make excuses. Either be here or don't. She jogged back to her team, leaving Edwin looking like he'd been slapped. She's right, you know, Alea said quietly. The excuses only make it worse. The second set started. This time, Edwin watched intently, even cheering when Jordan scored. But during a timeout, his phone rang. He stepped away to answer it. Here we go, Nina muttered. Edwin returned, already gathering his coat. There's an emergency at work. No, I stood up, blocking his path. You're not doing this to her again. Jasmine, I have to... Look at her. I pointed to Jordan, who was watching us with that all-too-familiar look of disappointment. Really look at her. Is your emergency worth breaking her heart again? He hesitated, then sat back down. I'll handle it later. Good choice, Barbara said firmly. Jordan's team won the match. As people started filing out of the gym, she approached us again, still in her uniform. We're going for pizza to celebrate, she said. Would you like to come, Dad? The invitation hung in the air. Everyone held their breath. Edwin glanced at his phone, then put it away. I'd love to. At the pizza place, I watched Edwin actually try for the first time. He asked Jordan about school, about volleyball, about her friends. She answered cautiously at first, then with growing animation. Remember that science project I told you about? She asked him. The one with the solar system. I don't think you mentioned it. Oh, her face fell slightly. Right, that was last month. I got an A. Tell him about the presentation, Emma piped up. The one where you made the planets light up. As Jordan explained her project, Edwin's phone buzzed repeatedly. He ignored it. I'd like to see it, he said when she finished. The project, if you still have it. Really? Her whole face lit up. It's at Mom's. I could show you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday, Nina reminded her. You have debate club. After that, Jordan said quickly, maybe Dad could come watch the debate first? Everyone turned to Edwin. This was the moment, another promise to either keep or break. He nodded slowly. What time? 9 a.m., Jordan said. You have to be on time. It's important. I'll be there at 8:30, he said. Front row. As we left the restaurant, I overheard Jordan talking to Nina. Do you think he'll really come? I don't know, honey, but he's trying. Yeah, Jordan said softly. I guess he is. I watched them drive away, thinking about karma and second chances. Edwin had a long way to go to earn back trust, but tonight was a start. Tomorrow would tell if he meant it. The morning of the debate competition, I arrived at the school auditorium at 8:15. Nina and Jordan were already there, setting up note cards at their assigned podium. Has he called? I asked Nina. She shook her head. Nothing. 8:25. Jordan kept glancing at the entrance. 8:30. Barbara and Robert arrived, followed by Aaliyah and Emma. 8:40. The debate coach started gathering the participants. He's not coming, is he? Jordan's voice cracked. Before anyone could respond, the auditorium doors burst open. Edwin rushed in, slightly out of breath but wearing a suit and tie. I'm here, he called out. I made it. You're late, Jordan said, but she was smiling. Traffic was terrible, but I left early just in case. He held up a small gift bag. And I brought something. Jordan opened the bag and pulled out a silver necklace with a star pendant. Your grandmother, my mom, wore this during her first debate competition, Edwin explained. She gave it to Aaliyah, who gave it to Emma. Now it's yours. Barbara gasped softly. Aaliyah squeezed Emma's hand. Really? Jordan touched the pendant carefully. Really? Edwin took the necklace and fastened it around her neck. Break a leg up there, kiddo. The debate began. Jordan was brilliant, her arguments clear and passionate. Every time she scored a point, Edwin cheered louder than anyone. During a break, Nina leaned over to me. He's different today. Let's hope it lasts. The final round came down to Jordan's team versus the defending champions. When Jordan delivered her closing argument, Edwin was on the edge of his seat. The judges have reached a decision, the moderator announced. Jordan's team won. The auditorium erupted in cheers. Edwin jumped up shouting, "That's my daughter!" As medals were being awarded, Edwin's phone rang. He glanced at it, then declined the call. Work? I asked. They'll survive without me. He smiled. This is more important. Afterward, we gathered in the lobby. Jordan clutched her medal, still wearing the star necklace. Dad, she said suddenly, remember my science project? The one with the planets? Of course. You were going to show it to me today. Well, she glanced at Nina, who nodded encouragingly. I was thinking maybe instead we could get lunch, all of us. I'd love that, Edwin said. But first, he turned to face everyone. I owe you all an apology, a real one. The lobby fell silent. I've been selfish, manipulative, and cowardly, he continued. I hurt everyone in this room, especially you, Jordan. I can't change the past 14 years, but I can promise to do better starting now. Actions speak louder than words, Nina reminded him. I know. He pulled out his phone and opened his calendar. That's why I've already blocked out every Thursday evening for Jordan's volleyball games, and every other Saturday for whatever she wants to do. No work calls, no emergencies, no excuses. Jordan's eyes widened. Really? Really? He showed her the calendar. And I've set up a proper college fund, one that can't be touched for anything else. Nina, I'll email you the details. What about work? Barbara asked. Your clients? We'll have to understand that my daughter comes first. He looked at Jordan. If they don't, I'll find new clients. I watched Jordan's face carefully, seeing hope battle with caution. You mean it? Test me, Edwin said. I'll prove it. She hugged him then, quick but real. When she pulled back, both had tears in their eyes. Lunch? She asked. Lead the way. As everyone headed to their cars, I hung back with Nina. Think he'll stick to it? She asked. I don't know, I admitted, but today was different. He chose her first, without hesitation. Thanks to you, she said, for forcing him to face everything. We all did it together. Walking to my car, I thought about karma and consequences, about how sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. Edwin had lost his marriage and his comfortable lies, but he might have gained something more valuable, a real relationship with his daughter. And Jordan? She got what she always deserved, a father who finally showed up. As for me, I got the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes doing the right thing is the sweetest revenge of all. The star necklace caught the sunlight as Jordan walked ahead, laughing at something Emma said. It sparkled like a new beginning. Sometimes that's all anyone needs, a chance to start over, to do better, to be better. And sometimes that's enough.
The banging on my front door started at exactly 3:17 a.m. I know because I'd been staring at my phone for hours, watching Andre's on my way message collect dust since 8 p.m. 3 loud knocks, a pause, then 2 more. My heart jumped into my throat. I'm Yolanda, and until that moment, I thought I knew what my life was. Financial analyst, loving wife, daughter of the greatest poker player I'd ever known. Funny how quickly labels can peel away. Mrs. Burton, a gravelly voice carried through the door. We know you're home. Cars in the driveway. I crept to the peephole, my bare feet silent against the hardwood. 2 men stood outside, one tall and lean with silver-streaked hair, the other built like a linebacker. Both wore expensive suits that didn't quite hide their rough edges. Andre's not here, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. The silver-haired man, Russell, I'd later learn, chuckled. Oh, we know that, sweetheart. But see, Andre owes us quite a bit of money, and since you're his wife. My fingers trembled as I opened Andre's text messages. 6 months of working late excuses, mysterious weekend business trips, all lies. I don't know anything about any money, I said, my mind racing to the joint account I'd checked just yesterday. The one that should have held our life savings, the one that now showed a balance of $1342. $300,000, the linebacker said, plus interest. The number hit me like a physical blow. I slid down the wall, my legs giving out. That's impossible. Your husband's quite the optimist, Russell said. Always thought the next bet would turn things around. Check your bedroom closet, Mrs. Burton. Behind the shoe rack, there's an envelope. I ran upstairs, my heart pounding. The envelope was there, tucked behind my winter boots. Inside, a single sheet of paper with Andre's messy scrawl. I had no choice. I'm sorry. Don't try to find me. Found it, didn't you? Russell called up. We'll be back tomorrow night. Same time. Have a plan for our money, or things get uncomfortable. Their footsteps retreated. I heard car doors slam, an engine start. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Lacey. You okay? Just saw a black SUV leave your driveway. I couldn't answer. Instead, I sat on my closet floor, surrounded by Andre's empty hangers, and remembered my father's voice from years ago. Baby girl, he'd said, shuffling his ever-present deck of cards. In poker and in life, there are 2 kinds of players, those who fold when they're dealt a bad hand, and those who learn to play it anyway. Dad had been the best poker player in 3 states. He'd taught me everything he knew before cancer took him last year. Andre had been at the funeral, holding my hand, promising to always be there. Another lie. My phone buzzed again. Lacey, I'm coming over. No, I texted back. I'm fine. Talk tomorrow. I wasn't fine. I was terrified, angry, and something else. Something that felt dangerously like my father's steel-eyed focus before a big game. I went to my office and booted up my laptop. First, I checked our other accounts, all drained. Credit cards, maxed out. Then I started searching for Andre's digital footprints, social media, email, phone records. He'd vanished like smoke. But he'd taught me one thing during our 5 years together. Everyone leaves traces. You just have to know where to look. The sun was rising when I found my first lead, a poker forum Andre had been active on. His username was subtle, but I recognized his writing style. He'd been in contact with someone called Sandstorm about underground games. I opened my bottom desk drawer and pulled out Dad's old deck of cards. The familiar feel of worn cardstock against my fingers brought back hours of lessons at our kitchen table. Every tell has a tell, Dad would say. Every player has a weakness. Your job is to find it before they find yours. I started shuffling, muscle memory taking over. My hands stopped shaking. $300,000. The bookies would be back in less than 24 hours. I had 2 options, fold or play. I thought of Andre's note. I had no choice. There's always a choice. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't called in years. Someone who knew computers the way my father knew cards. Poppy, it's Yolanda. Remember how you always said you owed me one? I need your help. The cards whispered against each other as I shuffled, and for the first time since the knocking started, I smiled. Game on. Poppy hadn't changed much in 10 years. Same wild red hair, same mischievous glint in her eyes, same tendency to type faster than she talked. She sat cross-legged on my living room floor, surrounded by laptops and energy drink cans, while I paced. You really married a moron, she said, fingers flying across keyboards. He used the same password for everything. Everything. Can you find him? Already did. Your boy's in Macau. She spun one laptop around. Used his credit card at the airport 3 days ago. But that's not the interesting part. I stopped pacing. What is? The interesting part is what I found in his email drafts. Come look at this. I knelt beside her, scanning the screen. Dozens of spreadsheets, each filled with names, dates, and numbers. My stomach turned when I recognized some of the names. Local business owners, a city council member, even a judge. These are all people who owe them money? I asked. Better. These are people who've been paying them money. Look at the patterns. Poppy highlighted several rows. Monthly payments, always the same amount. This isn't gambling debt, it's protection money. A sharp knock at the door made us both jump. I checked my phone. 3:17 a.m. again, right on schedule. Hide, I whispered to Poppy. She grabbed her laptops and disappeared into the kitchen. I opened the door to find Russell and his linebacker friend. Evening, Mrs. Burton, ready to discuss payment options. Come in. I stepped aside, my heart racing but my voice steady. Would you like coffee? Russell raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by the invitation. How hospitable. Black, 2 sugars. I led them to the living room, where I'd set up my father's old poker table. 3 cups of coffee waited, steam rising in the dim light. Interesting choice of furniture, Russell said, running his fingers along the felt. It was my father's, Sylvester Gross. You might have heard of him. The linebacker's eyes widened slightly. Russell's smile tightened. The silver fox? That was your father. The very same. I sat down, gesturing for them to join me. So about Andre's debt. 300,000, Russell said, plus 20% interest. That's quite a sum. I took a sip of coffee, almost as impressive as your protection racket. Russell's hand froze halfway to his cup. Excuse me? I pulled out my phone and opened the files Poppy had sent me. Would you like to see your spreadsheets, the ones detailing payments from Judge Matthews, or maybe Councilman Peters? Where did you get those? The linebacker started to stand, but Russell held up a hand. Careful, Mrs. Burton. You're playing a dangerous game. I'm my father's daughter. Games are what I do best. I met his gaze. Here's my offer. You write off Andre's debt, and these files stay private. Russell laughed, but there was no humor in it. Or I could have my friend here take your phone and break your fingers. You could, I agreed. But then the encrypted files, already sent to 3 different news outlets, would automatically decrypt at noon tomorrow. Plus, I imagine the FBI would be very interested in the offshore accounts I found. From the kitchen, I heard the faint sound of Poppy's typing. Right on cue, Russell's phone buzzed. He checked it, his face darkening. Just sent you a sample, I said. Consider it a preview. Russell stood slowly, straightening his jacket. You have no idea what you're getting into. Actually, I do. I'm getting into the same game you are, just playing it better. I stood as well. You have until noon tomorrow to decide. After that, I start showing my cards. This isn't over, Russell said, moving toward the door. The linebacker followed, cracking his knuckles meaningfully. One more thing, I called after them. Touch me or anyone I know, and everything releases immediately. I learned about dead man's switches from the best. The door slammed behind them. My legs turned to jelly, and I collapsed onto the couch. Poppy emerged from the kitchen, grinning. That was badass. But you know they're not going to just give up, right? Of course not. I pulled out my father's cards and started shuffling. That's why we're going to Plan B, which is, I dealt 2 hands face down. We're going to find every game Andre played in, every player he lost to, every dealer who watched him lose. I flipped over my cards, pocket aces, and we're going to follow the money all the way to the top. Poppy picked up her cards and smiled. You know what? I think I missed you. Good, because I need your help with one more thing. I reached for my laptop. Tell me everything you know about underground poker apps. As Poppy launched into an explanation about encrypted messaging and digital currencies, I felt my father's presence in the room. Almost heard his voice. The best players don't just play the cards, baby girl. They play the people holding them. I was counting on it. The underground poker room smelled like expensive cigars and cheap desperation. I adjusted my wig, a sleek black bob that Poppy insisted made me look dangerous, and counted my chips. $20,000, borrowed from my sister Lacey, after I'd promised her it wasn't for anything illegal. Technically, I hadn't lied. Poker itself wasn't illegal. Everything else about this place was. Martini, miss? A young server appeared at my elbow. His name tag read Dean. Vodka tonic, I said, using the code phrase Poppy had discovered on the forums. With a twist of fate, Dean's eyes flickered with recognition. Right this way. He led me past the main gaming floor to a private room in the back. 5 players sat around a felt-topped table, with 1 empty seat waiting. Russell occupied the dealer's position, shuffling cards with practiced precision. Well, well, he said, looking up. What's your name, sweetheart? Diana, I replied, using the alias Poppy had created, complete with a digital background that would hold up to any quick searches. I heard this was where the real games happen. You heard right. Russell gestured to the empty chair. 10,000 minimum buy-in. I counted out my chips, feeling the weight of the hidden camera in my necklace. Poppy was watching everything from her van outside, recording every face, every transaction. The first few hands went exactly as planned. I played cautiously, lost small pots, won smaller ones, let them think I was just another rich thrill seeker out of her depth. Raise 20,000, said the man to my left. A sweaty developer I recognized from Andre's spreadsheets. I looked at my cards again, Queen and Jack of Hearts. The flop showed the 10 and King of Hearts, 1 card away from a royal flush. Call, I said, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. The turn card was the 9 of clubs. Useless. All in, the developer announced, pushing his chips forward. I touched my father's old ring, now serving as my good luck charm. He'd taught me this exact scenario. When someone bets big on a draw, he'd said, they're usually holding air and hoping you'll fold. Call, I said, pushing in my remaining chips. The river card came. Ace of hearts. The developer's face fell as I revealed my royal flush. As I raked in the chips, I caught Russell studying me with newfound intensity. Impressive, he said. Your playstyle reminds me of someone. My father taught me, I replied truthfully. He was old school. Was. Cancer. Also true. The best lies, Dad always said. Stick close to the truth. 3 hours and several strategic wins later, my chip stack had tripled. I was about to call it a night when Dean appeared again. Phone call for you, Mr. Russell. Says it's urgent. Russell excused himself. Through my earpiece, I heard Poppy whisper, that's our distraction. Check his office now. I waited 2 hands, then stood. Powder room? Dean pointed me down a hallway. As soon as I was out of sight, I slipped into Russell's office. The door was locked, but Poppy had prepared me for that. 10 seconds with the electronic lock picker, and I was in. The office was minimal. Just a desk, computer, and filing cabinet. I plugged Poppy's USB drive into the computer, letting it do its work. 30 seconds to copy everything. Someone's coming. Poppy's voice crackled in my ear. I yanked out the drive and turned to leave, but the door was already opening. Dean stood there, eyes wide. You shouldn't be in here, he said, but made no move to raise an alarm. Neither should you, I replied, studying his face, young, nervous, with something like guilt in his eyes. I know who you are, he said quietly. You're Andre's wife. My blood froze. Are you going to tell Russell? Dean glanced over his shoulder, then stepped into the office, closing the door. No, but you need to be careful. Russell, he doesn't just break kneecaps anymore. Last guy who crossed him disappeared. Why are you telling me this? Because I've seen what they do to people. And because, he swallowed hard. Andre wasn't the only one they trapped. Some of us didn't have a choice. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Dean quickly opened the door. Bathroom's the next door over, ma'am, he said loudly. I slipped past him, heart pounding. When I returned to the table, Russell was back, watching me with those calculating eyes. Leaving so soon? He asked as I collected my chips. Quit while you're ahead, that's my motto. I smiled. All confidence on the outside, while my insides trembled. Smart girl, he said. We'll see you again soon, I hope. It wasn't a hope, it was a threat. As I left the club, Dean caught my eye one last time. His look was clear. Be careful. I touched my father's ring again. Careful wasn't part of the plan anymore. You've lost your mind, Lacey said, pacing my kitchen. Completely lost it. First the money, now this? She waved the USB drive like it was radioactive. Do you know what Russell did to the Martinez family when they couldn't pay? I know exactly what he did, I replied, watching Poppy work her magic on my laptop. That's why we're doing this. We. Lacey threw up her hands. There shouldn't be a we. There shouldn't be anything except you calling the police. Got it, Poppy interrupted, spinning the laptop around. You're going to want to see this. The screen showed a series of emails between Russell and someone called Badge 647. My stomach dropped as I read through them. They've got a cop on payroll, Poppy explained, highlighting key passages. Detective Marcus Wright. He's been burying evidence, tipping them off about raids. Lacey stopped pacing. That's why nobody can touch them. It gets worse. Poppy continued typing. Look at these payment records. They're not just running poker games. They're laundering money through half the businesses in town. A knock at the door made us all freeze. I checked the security camera feed on my phone. Dean stood outside, looking nervous. What's he doing here? Lacey hissed. Only one way to find out. I opened the door, keeping the security chain on. Yes, Russell knows, Dean blurted out. Someone saw you with the USB drive. He's on his way, right now. I yanked him inside and locked the door. Poppy, pack up. Lacey, get your car ready. No time, Dean said. They're all ready. Headlights swept across the windows as 3 black SUVs pulled up outside. Back door, I ordered, grabbing my laptop and the USB drive. We rushed through the kitchen just as someone started pounding on the front door. Mrs. Burton, Russell's voice carried through the house. Let's have a chat about computer privacy. We slipped out the back just as the front door splintered open. Lacey's car was parked in the alley, thank God. We piled in, me in front, Poppy and Dean in back. Drive, I commanded. Lacey floored it. They're following, Poppy reported, looking back. 2 cars. Call Detective Santos, I told Lacey. The one from Dad's poker nights. Tell her everything. You know a clean cop? Dean asked, ducking as a car behind us accelerated. Dad always said, keep one ace up your sleeve. I gripped the dashboard as Lacey took a sharp turn. He played poker with her every Thursday for 15 years. The SUVs were gaining. One pulled alongside us, trying to force us toward the curb. Left, I shouted. Take the bridge. Lacey swerved onto the bridge approach. They're going to trap us. That's the plan. I pulled out my phone and opened the files Poppy had copied. Poppy now. She hit a button on her laptop. Suddenly, every digital billboard on the bridge lit up with Russell's spreadsheets, names, dates, amounts, including Detective Wright's payments. What did you do? Dean whispered. Created a spectacle. Poppy grinned. Those billboards are streaming live to every news station in the city. The SUVs behind us slowed, then stopped. Through the rear window, I saw Russell standing in the street, phone to his ear, watching his empire implode. On screens 50 feet high, police units are converging on the bridge, Lacey reported, still on the phone with Detective Santos. They want us to pull over at the north end. 5 minutes later, we sat in Detective Santos's office, watching the chaos unfold on TV. Russell and his men were in custody. Detective Wright was being led out of the precinct in handcuffs. The news was calling it the biggest corruption bust in city history. Your father would be proud, Detective Santos said, setting down 4 cups of coffee, and probably terrified. You took one hell of a risk. Speaking of risks, Dean spoke up. What about me? They'll know I helped. Witness protection, Detective Santos replied. If you're willing to testify, Dean nodded slowly. Yeah, I am. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. My heart stopped when I opened it. What is it? Lacey asked. Andre. I showed them the screen. He's in custody in Macau. They're extraditing him. Are you okay? Lacey put her arm around me. I thought about the last few weeks, the fear, the anger, the rush of outsmarting Russell at his own game. I thought about Andre's note. I had no choice. Yeah, I said, surprising myself by meaning it. I really am. So what now? Poppy asked. I pulled out my father's deck of cards and started shuffling. The familiar motion felt different now, less like comfort and more like victory. Now, I said, we make sure this never happens to anyone else. Detective Santos smiled. Deal me in. The holding cell smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Andre sat across from me, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on his frame, looking smaller than I remembered. 3 weeks in a Macau detention center had hollowed his cheeks and darkened the circles under his eyes. You look different, he said, studying my face. The hair, a lot's different. I placed my father's deck of cards on the metal table between us. Start talking. Yolanda, not about us, about Russell's operation. Every game, every player, every corrupt cop you know about. I started dealing cards, the way Dad taught me to keep my hands steady during tough conversations. Detective Santos needs everything. Andre watched the cards fall. They'll kill me. They're going to prison. The question is how long you'll join them. I dealt the final card. Your choice. He picked up his cards, muscle memory, from countless games at our kitchen table. I never meant for any of this to happen. The first time I lost big, Russell offered to let me deal for him instead of breaking my legs, said I could work off the debt. And it worked, at first. But then he started asking for more, said I had to bring in new players, wealthy ones. If they lost big, he'd force them to launder money through their businesses. Andre's hands shook. When I tried to quit, he threatened you. So you ran. I thought if I disappeared, they'd leave you alone. He looked up, eyes wet. How did you do it? Take them down? I gathered the cards back into the deck. I played the game better than they did. Your father would be— Don't. I cut him off. Don't talk about my father. A guard knocked on the window, signaling 5 minutes left. Detective Santos is offering you a deal, I said, standing. Full cooperation for a reduced sentence. Witness protection after. What about you? Andre asked. What happens to us? I touched my wedding ring. Still there, though I wasn't sure why. There is no us anymore. There's just what you owe. Not to me, to everyone Russell hurt because of people like you. I'll do it, he said quickly. I'll tell them everything. Good. I turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. The money you lost, was it really 300,000? Andre's face fell. 450. Russell lied about the amount because he thought it would be easier to squeeze you for the smaller sum. I nodded, adding this to my mental ledger. Goodbye, Andre. Outside, Poppy waited in her van, surrounded by monitors. How'd it go? He'll talk. I slid into the passenger seat. What's happening at the club? Police are still cataloging evidence, but look what they found. She pulled up a video feed. On screen, officers were removing stacks of cash from behind a false wall. Over $2 million in cash. And that's just the beginning. My phone buzzed. A text from Dean. Meeting set for tonight. You sure about this? Are you? Poppy asked, reading over my shoulder. I thought about Andre's confession, about the real amount he'd lost, about all the other people Russell had trapped in his web. Russell's operation wasn't just about poker, I said. The games were just the hook. The real money was in forcing people to launder cash through their businesses, which means there are more clubs, more operations. Russell was middle management, at best. I texted Dean back. Yes, I'm sure. Poppy started the van. Detective Santos won't like this. Detective Santos doesn't need to know. I pulled out my phone and opened the encrypted messaging app Dean had shown me. Besides, we're not doing anything illegal. Right, Poppy snorted. We're just infiltrating more underground poker clubs to find evidence of money laundering. Totally legal. The poker's legal. The evidence gathering is creative. My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number with an address and a time. Below it, 3 words. Bring big money. You don't have to do this, Poppy said softly. Russell's done. Andre's cooperating. You won. I thought about the look in Andre's eyes when he confessed the real amount, about Dean's stories of other victims, about my father's voice in my head. The game's not over until you understand why you're playing. This was never about winning, I replied. It's about making sure nobody else loses everything to people like Russell. Okay. Poppy pulled up a satellite view of the address. But we do this smart. No risks, like last time. I touched my father's ring, feeling its familiar weight. No promises. The sun was setting as we drove across town, painting the sky the color of old playing cards. Somewhere out there, bigger players were running bigger games, ruining more lives. Time to ante up. The new club made Russell's look like a church bingo night. Located in the penthouse of an abandoned office building, it screamed old money and new crimes. Dean met me in the lobby, wearing a server's uniform that probably cost more than his monthly rent. They're all here, he whispered, leading me to the private elevator. Every major player in the region. Names? Better, I got photos. He slipped me a phone. Hidden camera in the service entrance. Poppy should be receiving them now. The elevator opened directly into what looked like a James Bond movie set. Crystal chandeliers, leather furniture, and at least 20 tables of high-stakes games in progress. My hidden camera necklace was already recording everything. "Miss Diana," a smooth voice called out. "We've been expecting you." The man approaching made Russell look like a small-time hustler, Thomas Price, according to Dean's intel, the real power behind the operation. "Your reputation precedes you," he said, taking my hand. "The woman who brought down Russell's operation, though I believe that's not your real name." My heart stopped, but my poker face held. "I'm afraid you're mistaken." "Am I?" He smiled, all teeth and threat. "Let's discuss it over a game." The high-stakes table just opened up, a trap, obviously, but one I had to walk into. Lead the way. The table's other players were exactly who we'd hoped to find: a corrupt judge, 2 city officials, and a real estate developer known for mysterious building fires, all part of the money laundering network we'd uncovered in Russell's files. "1 million minimum," Price announced, sitting down. "Cash only." I opened my briefcase, filled with marked bills, courtesy of Detective Santos, though Price didn't need to know that. "Deal me in." 3 hours later, my stack had doubled. I'd played cautiously, letting others take the big risks, while I gathered intel through seemingly casual conversation. The hidden microphone caught everything. "Impressive discipline," Price commented during a break. "You remind me of someone, a player from years ago. Sylvester, I believe." "Common name," I replied, but my hand tightened on my cards. "Indeed." Though his daughter might disagree. Before I could respond, Dean appeared at my shoulder. "Sir, there's a situation in the kitchen." "Excuse me." Price stood. "Don't go anywhere, Diana. Or should I say, Yolanda." As soon as he left, Dean whispered, "You've got to get out. Now." They found the transmitter in my uniform. "The evidence is already uploaded," Poppy confirmed, "but they're calling in muscle. Lots of it." I looked at my chips. Nearly 2 million in winnings. No time to cash out. "Create a distraction," I told Dean. "Something big." He nodded and disappeared. 30 seconds later, the fire alarm blared. Sprinklers activated, sending the well-dressed crowd into chaos. I slipped away from the table, heading for the service elevator. A hand grabbed my arm. "Leaving so soon?" Price's voice was ice cold. "We haven't finished our game." "Actually, we have." I nodded toward the windows, where police lights were already flashing. "Check your phone." He pulled it out, face darkening as he read. Every major news outlet was running the story. Live footage from my necklace camera, financial records, everything. "You've made a serious mistake," he growled, grip tightening. "The mistake was threatening my father years ago," I replied. "Yeah, I know about that too. Found his old journals. You tried to force him into your operation. He refused. And died a nobody. He died clean, which is more than you'll be able to say." The elevator dinged. Armed officers poured out, led by Detective Santos. "Thomas Price," she announced. "You're under arrest." Price shoved me hard, making a break for the fire escape. He might have made it if Dean hadn't chosen that moment to emerge from the kitchen, armed with a serving tray. One well-timed swing, and Price went down hard. "Nice hit," I said, helping Dean up. "Baseball scholarship," he grinned. "Finally came in handy." Outside, Poppy was waiting in her van, surrounded by news vans and police cars. "Got everything," she confirmed, "including Price's confession about your dad." I watched as Price was led out in handcuffs, followed by the judge and city officials. The real estate developer had apparently tried to escape through the kitchen and ended up face first in a pot of soup. "You okay?" Detective Santos asked, joining us. I touched my father's ring, thinking about his journals, about the pressure Price had put on him, about the integrity that had probably cost him his life. "Yeah," I said, "but it's not over." "There are always more games," she agreed. "No." I pulled out my father's deck. "There are always more players who need to be stopped." The cards felt warm in my hands, like they were ready for whatever came next. So was I. The courthouse buzzed with tension. I sat in the front row, watching Price and Russell share the defense table, while Andre testified against them. My soon-to-be ex-husband looked small in his orange jumpsuit, but his voice carried clearly as he detailed years of extortion and violence. And what happened when businesses couldn't pay? The prosecutor asked. They'd start with threats, Andre said. Then accidents, fires, break-ins. Sometimes people disappeared. Price's lawyer stood. Objection, speculation. Overruled, the judge replied. Continue, Mr. Burton. A commotion erupted at the courtroom doors. 3 men in suits burst in, making a beeline for Andre. Detective Santos moved first, tackling one while courthouse security grabbed another. The third reached into his jacket. Gun, someone shouted. I reacted without thinking, grabbing the heavy law book from the bench in front of me and hurling it. It caught the gunman in the face just as Poppy, sitting behind him, swept his legs. He went down hard, weapon skittering across the floor. Order. The judge's gavel crashed down. Clear the courtroom. As security dragged the would-be assassins away, I caught Price smirking. He thought this was a victory, showing what happened to people who testified against him, even if the attempt failed. Court will resume tomorrow, the judge announced. Mr. Burton will be placed in protective custody. Outside, Detective Santos pulled me aside. That wasn't random. Someone leaked the testimony schedule. I know, I said. And I know who. I showed her my phone. A series of texts Poppy had intercepted between Price's lawyer and someone called the director. There's another level, I explained. Someone above Price. Someone with enough power to infiltrate the courthouse. You need to let us handle this, Santos warned. You've done enough. Have I? I nodded toward the TV in the courthouse lobby, where news crews were reporting on the assassination attempt. They're still hurting people, still running games, just more carefully now. Yolanda. I found something in my father's journals. I cut her off. Notes about a private club in the mountains, ultra exclusive. He wrote that the real power players, the ones who controlled everything, they only played there. The Summit Club, Dean said, joining us. I heard whispers about it when I worked for Russell. Once a year, the biggest game in the country. Invitation only. And, Santos asked. And this year's game is next week. I pulled out an envelope. Price's lawyer had this in his briefcase. Poppy copied it before the trial. Inside was an ornate invitation and a key card. Absolutely not, Santos said. This is way too dangerous. More dangerous than letting them continue, I challenged. They tried to kill Andre in open court. What happens to the next person who stands up to them? She's right. Poppy chimed in, laptop open. I've been tracking their pattern. Every time we shut down one operation, 2 more pop up, like a hydra. Then you cut off the head, Dean said quietly. We all looked at him. The Summit Club, he continued. It's not just about poker. It's where they make the real decisions. Territory, operations, who lives, who dies. And now we have a way in, I added. Santos ran a hand through her hair. Even if I wanted to help, I couldn't authorize an operation based on a stolen invitation. The evidence would be inadmissible. Who said anything about evidence? I smiled. We're just going to play poker. With what money? Santos demanded. These games run in the millions. Actually, Poppy turned her laptop around. Remember Price's private accounts? The ones we found during the raid? They're still active, and I know how to access them. That's illegal, Santos pointed out, using a criminal's own money to bring down his organization. I shrugged. Sounds like karma, to me. A court officer approached. Detective, they need you for the incident report. Santos gave me a hard look. We'll discuss this later. After she left, Dean leaned in. You're really going to do this? No, I corrected. We're going to do this. One last game. The biggest one yet, Poppy added. I touched my father's ring, remembering his last entry in the journal. Sometimes the hardest part isn't playing the cards you're dealt. It's knowing when to deal a new hand entirely. The Summit Club is in 3 days, I said. Poppy, I need everything. Blueprints, security details, Player profiles. Dean, you're my inside man again, and I need to make a call. To who? Dean asked. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized from my father's journal. It rang twice. Hello? A gruff voice answered. Jack, this is Sylvester's daughter. I need to ask you about dealing at the Summit Club. There was a long pause. I wondered when you'd call. Your father said you would, someday. I looked at my friends, at the courtroom where Andre had finally found his courage, at the future we were about to reshape. Let's talk, I said. The Summit Club lived up to its name. A glass and steel fortress perched on a mountain peak, accessible only by private road. Jack, my father's old friend, met us at the service entrance. Your father would be proud, he said, adjusting my dealer's bow tie, and terrified. That's what everyone keeps saying. I checked my reflection. The uniform fit perfectly, making me look like just another high-end casino employee. Remember, Jack said, these people aren't just rich, they're dangerous. One wrong move. I know. I touched my father's ring, now serving as my only good luck charm. Is everything set? He nodded. You're dealing the main event, just like we practiced. In my ear, Poppy's voice crackled. Security systems are looped. Dean's in position at the bar. Detective Santos has units standing by. I took a deep breath and entered the main floor. The Summit Club made Price's operation look like a kid's poker night. Billion-dollar deals were being made at the bar. International criminals mingled with corrupt politicians. And at the center of it all, the high-stakes table where I'd be dealing. Ladies and gentlemen, Jack announced to the gathered players, our main event begins in 5 minutes, 10 million minimum buy-in. I took my position, shuffling cards with the precision my father had drilled into me since childhood. One by one, the players arrived. A tech billionaire, a drug kingpin, a senator, and finally, him, the director, the man whose name appeared in every encrypted message, every secret document we'd uncovered. The game is no limit Texas Hold'em, I announced, keeping my voice steady. Good luck. The first few hands went smoothly. I dealt with mechanical precision, watching as millions changed hands. Through my earpiece, I could hear Poppy recording everything, Dean collecting conversations at the bar. Then the director won a massive pot with a bluff. Impressive, the tech billionaire said, almost as impressive as your handling of the Price situation. Price got sloppy, the director replied, letting that dealer's daughter dismantle his operation. Amateur hour. My hands didn't falter as I dealt the next hand, but my heart raced. Speaking of Price, the senator leaned in. What's the status of our witness problem? Being handled, the director smiled. By now, Mr. Burton should be experiencing an unfortunate accident in protective custody. The cards slipped from my hands, scattering across the table. I'm so sorry, I said, reaching to gather them. But the director caught my wrist. You know, he said quietly, you have your father's tells. Everything happened at once. The director reached inside his jacket. Dean shouted a warning from the bar, and I made my play. Now, I yelled. The lights cut out. In the darkness, I flipped the table, sending chips and cards flying. Shouts and chaos erupted as federal agents stormed in from every entrance. Federal agents! Detective Santos's voice boomed. Everyone on the ground. The director tried to run, but found Jack blocking his path. One solid punch from my father's old friend, and the director went down. When the lights came back on, the scene was almost beautiful. Dozens of the world's most untouchable criminals, face down on custom carpets, while agents cuffed them. You okay? Dean asked, helping me up. Andre? I had to know. Safe. Poppy confirmed through the earpiece. The attempt failed. Santos's team intercepted them. The director glared at me as agents led him away. You have no idea what you've done. Actually, I do. I pulled out my father's deck of cards. I finished what my father started. He knew about this place, about all of you. He kept records, built evidence, waited for the right moment. And what? The director laughed. You're his revenge. No, I dealt one final hand. 4 aces, face up. I'm his justice. Outside, sunrise painted the mountain gold. Detective Santos handed me a coffee as we watched the parade of arrests, the evidence Poppy gathered, plus the recorded conversations. She shook her head. This will take down operations in 12 countries. Good. I shuffled my father's cards one last time, then handed them to her. Evidence locker, along with his journals. What will you do now? I looked at Dean and Poppy, who were already arguing about their next project. Thought about the message Andre had sent through his lawyer. Thank you for showing me what real courage looks like. I think, I said, I'll deal a new hand. Santos smiled. Your father really would be proud. I know. I touched his ring one last time, then turned toward the sunrise. But more importantly, I am. Behind us, the Summit Club stood empty, its tables silent, its secrets exposed to the dawn. Sometimes, I realized, the best revenge isn't winning the game, it's changing the rules entirely. The first time my husband laughed at my writing dreams, I should have known. But love makes you blind, and success makes the best revenge. My name is Kaya, and I've spent the last decade pretending my passion for writing was just a cute hobby. I run our family bookstore with my father, surrounded by other people's stories, while mine gathered dust in hidden folders on my laptop. That was until 6 months ago. Still working on that little book of yours? Brian's voice dripped with amusement as he walked into our home office, loosening his tie after another successful day at his marketing firm. I quickly minimized the document on my screen. Not fast enough. It's actually finished, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I was thinking of sending it to some agents. He leaned against my desk, picking up the framed photo of us from our wedding day. Honey, do you know how many people try to get published every year? Maybe stick to what you're good at. The bookstore's doing great under your management. I forced a smile, the kind that had become my specialty. You're probably right. That night, after Bryant fell asleep, I sat in our bathroom with my laptop, reading through my manuscript one last time. My sister Zoe had been pushing me to submit it for months. What's the worst that could happen? She'd said over coffee last week. They say no, at least you tried. I created a new email address under the pen name Alexandra Rivers and sent my manuscript to 5 literary agents. Then I deleted the sent emails and cleared my browser history. 3 weeks later, Rachel Benson called. Is this Alexandra Rivers? She asked when I answered my cell phone during my lunch break at the bookstore. My heart stopped. Yes? I couldn't put your manuscript down. The character development, the plot twists. It's exactly what we're looking for. When can we meet? I glanced through the store's window at my father, Abraham, helping a customer. I actually prefer to communicate via email. I'm very private about my writing. Rachel paused. That's unusual, but we can work with it. Are you willing to do virtual meetings? And just like that, my secret career began. I wrote under the cover of darkness, edited during quiet moments at the store, and conducted all business through carefully scheduled video calls from my car during grocery runs. The book took off faster than anyone expected. By month 4, it was climbing bestseller lists. My father started stocking multiple copies in the store's front window. Have you read this new author, Alexandra Rivers? He asked me one morning, straightening the display. Everyone's talking about her. Mysterious too. No photos, no social media presence. I pretended to examine the cover. Maybe she just wants her work to speak for itself. Bryant came home that evening, clutching a copy of my book. My stomach lurched. Look what everyone at work is raving about, he said, tossing it onto the kitchen counter. Apparently, it's the next big thing. The author's some recluse, though, probably ugly or weird. I stirred the pasta sauce harder than necessary. Maybe she just values her privacy. Who wouldn't want recognition for their work? He shook his head. That's the whole point of success. Getting your name out there, being somebody. I watched him walk away, my hands trembling slightly. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with another email from Rachel. about upcoming promotional opportunities. The irony wasn't lost on me. That weekend, Dustin, our longtime friend and local writing group organizer, stopped by the bookstore. He caught my eye and held up my book. His knowing smile made my chest tight. "Quite the achievement," he whispered, when no one was within earshot. "Your secret's safe with me, but you should be proud." I shushed him, glancing around nervously. "How did you know?" "Please, I've been reading your writing for years in group. I'd recognize your voice anywhere." He squeezed my arm. "You deserve this, Kaya." Later that night, Bryant was reading in bed, my book, of all things. "This is actually really good," he mused. "The way the main character handles betrayal, it's powerful stuff." I turned away, fighting back a bitter laugh. If he only knew how much of our life I'd woven into those pages, how many of his dismissive comments had fueled my late-night writing sessions. My phone lit up with a notification. Rachel's email subject line made my blood run cold. National Literature Awards nomination. I closed my eyes, remembering all the times Bryant had patted my head and called my writing cute. All the times his mother Sylvia had suggested I focus on real work instead of scribbling stories. The satisfaction of secret success was sweet, but something inside me knew this couldn't last forever. Sooner or later, the truth would have to come out. I just didn't know then how spectacular and devastating that revelation would be. The manuscript sat in plain sight on my desk, mocking me. I'd gotten careless, leaving printouts of early drafts scattered among my other papers. That's how everything started to unravel. "What's this?" Bryant's voice made me jump. He stood in the doorway of our home office, holding pages of my novel. The real one, not the published version. "Just some writing exercises," I said, trying to keep my voice casual while my heart hammered against my ribs. He flipped through the pages, his eyes narrowing. "These scenes, they're exactly like that Alexandra Rivers book. I was practicing by copying passages I liked." The lie tasted bitter in my mouth. Lots of writers do that. Bryant set the pages down, but something had changed in his expression. That night, I shredded every draft I could find and deleted files from my laptop. But the damage was done. I could feel it in the way he watched me, in his sudden interest in my writing habits. A week later, we attended a local literary event where my book was being discussed. Bryant insisted on coming, claiming he wanted to support my bookstore's involvement. "The symbolism in Chapter 3 is particularly striking," one reader said during the discussion. "The way the protagonist confronts her fears through that metaphor with the locked door." I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, remembering writing that scene at 3 a.m. after another one of Bryant's dismissive comments about my hobby. "What do you think, honey?" Bryant squeezed my hand, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "You've read it, right?" "It's interesting," I managed. Later that evening, Zoe called. "Have you seen Bryant's social media post?" I hadn't. I pulled it up and felt my stomach drop. There was a photo of him in our home office, surrounded by books, looking pensively at his laptop. The caption read, "Sometimes the biggest stories take time to tell. Can't wait to share some exciting news." "What is he doing?" Zoe's voice was sharp with concern. "I don't know," I whispered. But deep down, I did. The next morning, Rachel called during my usual grocery store hiding spot. "Alexandra, there's been an interesting development. A man named Bryant Shepard contacted our office, claiming to be you." My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. "What?" "He has some convincing evidence, early drafts, notes, even a detailed outline of the plot. He says he used a female pen name to make the story more marketable." I couldn't breathe. "And you believed him?" "We're not sure what to believe. But with the National Literature Awards coming up, we need to sort this out quickly." That evening, Bryant was practically glowing when he came home. "Guess who's been nominated for a major award?" I stood in our kitchen, clutching a dish towel like a lifeline. "What did you do?" "What I had to." He stepped closer, his voice soft but firm. "Think about it, Kaya. Who would believe you anyway? You've never published anything. I have connections, credibility. It's my book," I whispered. Is it? Where's your proof? All those drafts you shredded, those files you deleted. He touched my cheek, and I flinched. This is better for both of us. I can make this book even bigger than it is. We'll both benefit. I jerked away from him. You can't do this. I already have. He pulled out an invitation from his pocket. The awards ceremony is next month. They're expecting both of us, the brilliant author and his supportive wife. I ran to the bathroom and threw up, my whole body shaking. When I could breathe again, I called Zoe. I'll kill him, she said immediately. No, I wiped my face. I need to think. What's to think about? Tell everyone the truth. But it wasn't that simple. Bryant was right. I had no proof. I'd been so careful hiding my identity that I destroyed any evidence of my authorship. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Bryant did interviews, charming everyone with his humble storyteller persona. His mother, Sylvia, called constantly, gushing about her son's hidden talent. Even my father was impressed. Who would have thought? Abraham said one day at the store. Bryant, an author. No wonder he always supported you running the bookstore. I escaped to the storage room and called Dustin. People are starting to believe him, I said, my voice breaking. Then stop him, Dustin replied firmly. I've got copies of your early drafts from writing group, dated, with my comments. Would that help? I closed my eyes, thinking of the awards ceremony ahead. Keep them safe. I might need them soon. That night, Bryant practiced his acceptance speech in front of our bedroom mirror. This story came from a place of deep personal truth, he rehearsed, without a hint of irony. I watched him from the doorway, something hardening inside me. He caught my eye in the reflection and smiled. That same patronizing smile he'd given me for years when I talked about writing. The time for hiding was over. I had a speech of my own to prepare. You'll never guess who's coming to the ceremony, Bryant announced over breakfast, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Mom and Dad, of course, and I invited your father too. He was so excited. The toast in my mouth turned to ash. You invited our families. Why not? It's a celebration. He sipped his coffee, watching me over the rim. You should invite Zoe too. Make it a real family affair. I gripped my fork so hard it hurt. He was boxing me in, making it impossible to expose him without humiliating everyone we loved. Clever. Later that morning, Sylvia called while I was arranging books at the store. Darling, we simply must go shopping for the ceremony. You'll need something appropriate for the wife of a literary genius. I'm pretty busy with the store. Nonsense. I'll pick you up at 2. She hung up before I could protest. 3 hours later, I stood in an upscale boutique while Sylvia held up dresses. This one's perfect, subtle, elegant, won't draw attention from Bryant. Heaven forbid, I muttered. What was that, dear? Nothing? I forced a smile. It's beautiful. She pressed the dress into my arms. You know, I always worried about Bryant settling down with someone so simple, but now I see you were exactly what he needed, a supportive wife who could give him space to develop his talents. I disappeared into the fitting room, pressing my forehead against the cool mirror. My phone buzzed, a text from Zoe. Just got Bryant's invitation. Please tell me you have a plan. I didn't respond. That evening, Rachel called during my now routine escape to the grocery store parking lot. Alexandra, or whoever you are, this situation is unprecedented. Bryant's story about using a female pen name is gaining traction. The publicity is incredible. He's lying, I said, my voice breaking. Then prove it. Because right now, he's got a compelling narrative and evidence. What do you have? I ended the call and sat there, watching families load groceries into their cars, living their normal lives. My phone buzzed again, Dustin this time. I found more of your old drafts, he said when I answered. And I have emails from our writing group discussions. It's not much, but keep them safe, I interrupted. I'm not ready yet. Back home, Bryant was in his element, practicing his speech again. When I created this story, I poured my heart into every word. Stop. The word came out sharper than I intended. He turned, raising an eyebrow. Problem. How can you stand there and say those words? They're not yours. They are now. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. And you're going to smile and support me, just like you always have. Because if you don't, you'll hurt everyone. Your father, my parents, our friends. Is that what you want? I backed away. You're a coward. No, I'm smart. I saw an opportunity and took it. That's what winners do. He straightened his tie. Now, about your dress for the ceremony. The next day at the bookstore, my father couldn't stop talking about Bryant's success. To think, all those hours he spent in his office. He was writing this masterpiece. I knocked over a stack of books. Dad, please. Are you okay? He helped me gather the fallen volumes. You seem stressed lately. I'm fine. I wasn't fine. I was drowning. That afternoon, Zoe stormed into the store. This has gone far enough. Not here, I hissed, pulling her into the storage room. He's giving interviews, Kaya. He's talking about scenes that you wrote about us, about our childhood. How can you let him steal your memories? I slid down against a shelf of books. What choice do I have? Tell the truth. Show them the proof. What proof? Everything I have is circumstantial. He's got the drafts, the notes. He's got forgeries. She knelt beside me. And you've got me. I remember every story you told me while writing this book. Every late-night call about plot points. Every tear you shed when Bryant dismissed your dreams. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. The ceremony's in 3 days. Then we have 3 days to prepare. She squeezed my hand. No more hiding. That night, Bryant hosted a small dinner party for his literary friends. I watched him hold court in our living room, describing his creative process with perfect conviction. The character's journey really reflects my own struggles with identity and recognition, he said, and everyone nodded appreciatively. I excused myself and went upstairs to our bedroom. Opening my laptop, I began to write. Not a novel this time, but a different kind of story. The true story. My phone lit up with a text from Dustin. Whatever you decide to do, I've got your back. We all do. I looked at my reflection in the window, hearing Bryant's laughter float up from downstairs. 3 days until the ceremony. 3 days until I either accepted this theft of my identity or fought back. The choice was becoming clearer with every stolen word that came out of my husband's mouth. The National Literature Awards ceremony buzzed with energy. Cameras flashed as Bryant guided me through the entrance, his hand pressed firmly against my lower back. The dress Sylvia chose felt like a straitjacket. Smile, he whispered through his teeth. Everyone's watching. They were. Literary critics, publishers, and authors filled the grand hall, all eager to meet the mysterious writer who'd captured readers' hearts. My heart. My words. Bryant. Rachel approached us, elegant in a black evening gown. Her eyes flickered to me briefly. And this must be your wife. Kaya, right? I nodded, watching her search my face. Did she recognize my voice from our calls? There's my boy. Sylvia's voice cut through the crowd. She and Bryant's father arrived, followed by my dad and Zoe. My sister's expression was thunderous. Quite a turnout, Abraham said, beaming with pride. Bryant, son, you've done us all proud. I excused myself to the bathroom, where I found Zoe waiting. I brought what you asked for. She pulled a USB drive from her clutch. Dustin's copies of your drafts, emails, everything. My hands shook as I took it. I don't know if I can do this. Look at me. She gripped my shoulders. That man out there is stealing your life's work. Your voice, your story. But Dad looks so happy. Dad will be prouder knowing his daughter wrote that book, not his fraud of a son-in-law. The ceremony began. I sat between Bryant and my father, watching speakers praise the year's literary achievements. Bryant squeezed my hand when they announced the major awards category, and the National Literature Award goes to Bryant Shepard for Shadows of Silence. The room erupted in applause. Bryant stood, straightening his jacket. He kissed my cheek before heading to the stage. I've dreamed of this moment, he began, his voice thick with manufactured emotion. This story came from the deepest part of my soul. I felt sick. These were my words. My soul, he was laying bare. The protagonist's journey reflects my own struggles with identity, he continued. The scene where she confronts her past in her grandmother's attic, that was inspired by my own childhood. Beside me, Zoe made a small, angry sound. That scene was about our grandmother, about the summer we spent sorting through her belongings after she died. Writing has always been my secret passion, Bryant said, his voice breaking perfectly. I chose a female pen name because I wanted the story to speak for itself, free from preconceptions. Rachel watched from the front row, her expression unreadable. Sylvia dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. And finally, I want to thank my wonderful wife, Kaya. He gestured to me. Her support made this possible. The spotlight found me. Hundreds of eyes turned in my direction. My father patted my hand proudly. Something snapped. I stood up. Kaya, Bryant's voice held a warning edge. I walked toward the stage, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor. The room fell silent. Honey, this isn't the time. Bryant started, but I was already climbing the steps. Actually, I said, my voice carrying through his microphone. This is exactly the time. Sylvia half rose from her seat. Bryant, what is she doing? I reached into my clutch and pulled out the USB drive. I have something to share with everyone. Kaya, don't. Bryant grabbed my arm, but I pulled away. The scene in the grandmother's attic? I turned to face the audience. That was my grandmother, my attic, my memory. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I saw Rachel lean forward in her seat. I can prove it. My voice grew stronger. I have the original drafts, dated emails, witnesses from my writing group. I am Alexandra Rivers. The room erupted in chaos. Cameras flashed. People stood up. Bryant tried to grab the microphone, but I held firm. The protagonist's struggle with identity, that was mine. Every word, every scene, every emotion, they're all mine. She's lying, Bryant said desperately. She's just upset, emotional. Read page 158. I challenged the audience. The scene where the main character finds her grandmother's old recipe box. Ask me what was in it. Ask me about the hidden letter beneath the snickerdoodle recipe. Ask me anything about this book, my book. Security approached the stage. Bryant smiled nervously at the crowd. My wife has been under a lot of stress lately. Check the USB drive, I said quickly. Compare the writing group drafts with the published version. Look at the timestamps, the email trails. That's enough. Bryant tried to lead me away, but I planted my feet. No, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I've had enough of being quiet. In the audience, my father stood frozen. Zoe was filming everything on her phone. Sylvia looked like she might faint. And there, in the front row, Rachel Benson pulled out her phone and started making calls. The truth was out. Now I just had to prove it. Security didn't remove me from the stage. Instead, Rachel's voice cut through the chaos. Let her speak. The audience settled into an uneasy quiet. Bryant's hand fell away from my arm. The proof is all here, I said, holding up the USB drive. But let me tell you something that isn't in any file. Let me tell you about the night I wrote the final chapter. Rachel nodded to a technician, who connected my drive to the presentation system. The screen behind me flickered to life. It was 3 a.m, I continued. I was sitting in our bathroom, because Bryant said my typing kept him awake. I wrote about a woman finding her voice, not knowing I was really writing about myself. The first document appeared on screen, my original draft, dated and time-stamped, with Dustin's comments in the margins. That's my writing group feedback, Dustin called out from the audience, standing up. I can verify every word. Bryant stepped forward. Those could be fabricated. Page 243, I cut him off. The recipe box scene. Tell them what was under the snickerdoodle recipe, Bryant. Tell them about the letter. He opened his mouth, then closed it. It was a love letter, I said, my voice breaking. From my grandmother to a man who wasn't my grandfather. A secret she took to her grave that only Zoe and I knew about. Want to know how I know? Because we found it together. Zoe stood up. The letter was dated June 15th, 1962. It was written on blue stationery with a torn corner. The man's name was Robert. Cameras flashed. Journalists typed frantically on their phones. But that's not all, I continued. The protagonist's fear of thunderstorms. That came from the night Zoe and I hid under our grandmother's quilt during a blackout. The description of the attic's smell, mothballs, and old leather, that's real. Every detail is memory, not imagination. Rachel approached the stage, holding her phone. I have every email exchange with Alexandra Rivers here. The writing style matches perfectly. The voice is identical. This is ridiculous. Sylvia stood up, her face flushed. Bryant would never. Ask him to explain any part of the writing process, I challenged. Ask him about the character arcs, the symbolism, the research. Ask him anything. Bryant's confident facade cracked. Sweat beaded on his forehead. The locked door metaphor in Chapter 3 called out a literary critic from the second row. What inspired that? Bryant stammered. Well, you see, the door represents. It was our first apartment, I interrupted. The door would stick in humid weather. You had to shoulder it open, just like the protagonist had, to force her way through her fears. You wouldn't know that, Bryant, because you were never there. You were too busy at the office, the audience murmured. More people stood up, phones recording. The proof is overwhelming, Rachel announced. The timestamps, the drafts, the consistent writing style in emails. Mr. Shepard, do you have anything to say in your defense? Bryant's shoulders slumped. For a moment, he looked smaller, vulnerable. Then his eyes hardened. You want the truth? His voice cracked. Fine. I found her manuscript. I read it. It was good. Better than good. But who was she? Nobody. Just a bookstore manager with a hobby. I could make it successful. I had the connections, the credibility. You had no right, I whispered. I made your book famous. He turned to me, desperate. Look what I did for it. The interviews, the publicity. You stole my voice, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You stole my memories, my grandmother's story, my childhood with Zoe. You stole everything that made this book real. My father stood up slowly. Bryant, how could you? Dad, Bryant turned to his father. Mom, I just wanted. But Sylvia had already turned away, her shoulders shaking. Security finally approached, but not for me. They escorted Bryant off the stage as Rachel took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, in light of this evidence, the National Literature Awards Committee will need to reconvene. But I think it's clear who the real Alexandra Rivers is. The room erupted in applause. Journalists swarmed forward, calling my name, my real name. Through the chaos, I saw my father pushing through the crowd. Kaya, he reached for me, tears in his eyes. Why didn't you tell me? I was afraid, I said, letting him pull me into a hug. I didn't want to disappoint you. Disappoint me? My daughter wrote a bestseller. I've never been more proud. Zoe joined our hug, squeezing tight. Told you the truth would set you free. Over their shoulders, I watched Bryant being led away. He looked back once, and in his eyes I saw something I'd never seen before. Defeat. Rachel touched my arm. We have a lot to discuss, Alexandra, or should I say, Kaya. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. Kaya, my name is Kaya, and I have more stories to tell. The aftermath exploded like a storm. Reporters camped outside our bookstore. My phone buzzed constantly, and social media erupted with hot takes and hashtags. But it was the quiet conversation in our living room that shook me most. I need to explain, Bryant said, sitting across from me. His tie was loose, dark circles under his eyes. 2 days had passed since the ceremony. There's nothing to explain. I started to stand, but Zoe put a hand on my shoulder. Let him talk, she said. You need to hear this. Bryant pulled out an old photograph, himself as a child, holding up a story he'd written. I was 8 here. Mom had it framed. Why are you showing me this? Because it was the last time she was proud of anything I created. His voice cracked. After this, Everything I wrote was derivative, or shallow, or not up to the family standard. That doesn't excuse. No, it doesn't. He rubbed his face. But when I found your manuscript, God, Kaya, it was everything I'd ever wanted to write. Everything Mom always said I couldn't do. Zoe scoffed. So you stole it? I convinced myself I could do it justice, that I could give it the platform it deserved. He laughed bitterly. I sound pathetic, don't I? Yes, I said, but something in my chest tightened. The doorbell rang. Sylvia stood outside, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. May I come in? She asked quietly. I nodded, and she entered, freezing when she saw Bryant. The tension in the room could have cut glass. I found these. She pulled out a stack of papers from her bag. In the attic. Bryant's old stories, from when he was young. Bryant stiffened. Mom, don't. They're beautiful, she whispered. Creative, imaginative. And I killed that creativity, didn't I? That doesn't matter now, he said. It matters. She slammed the papers down. I did this. I made you believe you weren't good enough, and look what it led to. I watched them, mother and son, both breaking in different ways. I wanted to make you proud. Bryant's voice was barely audible. By lying, by stealing. Sylvia shook her head. I raised you better than that. Did you? He stood up suddenly. All I ever heard was how I wasn't measuring up, how I needed to be more successful, more impressive, more everything. Bryant, I started, but he was on a roll. Do you know what it's like, living with that pressure, watching your wife create something so beautiful while he choked, while you can barely string two sentences together because your mother's voice is always in your head, telling you it's not good enough? Sylvia sank into a chair, her face ashen. I never meant. I know you didn't, he said softly. But you did it anyway. The room fell silent. Outside, a camera flashed, another photographer hoping for a shot through our windows. I have to face the consequences, Bryant said finally. The publishing house is suing. My firm put me on leave. It's all falling apart. Good, Zoe muttered. But I wasn't so sure anymore. You need help, I said, surprising myself. Professional help, both of you do. Sylvia nodded slowly. She's right. Why are you being kind to me? Bryant asked. After what I did. Because I understand pressure, I said. I understand feeling like you're not enough. It's why I hid behind a pen name in the first place. The difference is, Zoe interjected, you didn't steal someone else's work. No, I agreed. But I'm not interested in revenge anymore. I just want my life back, my voice back. Bryant stood up. I'll move out tonight. Yes, I said. You will. He gathered his coat, then paused. The book, it really is brilliant, Kaya. I'm sorry I tried to make it mine. After he and Sylvia left, Zoe hugged me. You're too forgiving. No, I wiped my eyes. I'm just tired of anger. It's time to write my own next chapter. My phone buzzed. Rachel again. The publishing house wants to meet tomorrow. They're talking about a multi-book deal, under your real name this time. I looked around our living room, at the life Bryant and I had built. The bookstore receipts on the coffee table, the family photos on the wall, the half-finished manuscript in my laptop. Tell them yes, I said, but I have one condition. What's that? The dedication in the next edition of Shadows of Silence. I want to change it. To what? I thought about Bryant's childhood stories, about Sylvia's crushing expectations, about my own journey to find my voice. To everyone who's ever felt not good enough, I said. Sometimes the hardest story to tell is your own. Zoe squeezed my hand. Now that's a story worth telling. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows through our windows. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, interviews, legal meetings, decisions about the future. But for now, I sat in my quiet living room, opened my laptop, and began to write. This time, under my own name. And how did it feel when your husband claimed your work as his own? The talk show host leaned forward. Her expression practiced sympathy. Like drowning, I said simply. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about my new book. 3 months had passed since the awards ceremony. Bryant had moved to Seattle, started therapy, and signed a legal agreement acknowledging his theft. The media circus was finally dying down, but the aftermath still rippled through our lives. Of course, the host smiled. But surely our viewers want to know. They want to know about the story, I interrupted firmly. About hope, redemption, and finding your voice. That's what matters. Backstage, after the interview, Zoe handed me a coffee. You handled that well. I'm tired of being the woman whose husband stole her book. I want to be known for my writing. Speaking of writing, she pulled out her phone, showing me the latest bestseller list. My new novel, written under my real name, sat at number 3. Not bad for a bookstore manager with a hobby, I grinned. The bookstore had changed too. Dad had added an local author section, prominently featuring both my books. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Remember when we used to hide your manuscripts in the storage room? He said that evening, as we closed up shop. Now look at you. A customer approached the counter, clutching my new book. Would you sign this? I love how you wrote about forgiveness. It must have been hard, after everything. I signed the book, thinking about Bryant's last email. I'm doing better. The therapist says I need to find my own voice. Maybe someday I'll actually write something worth reading. It's not always about forgiveness, I told the customer. Sometimes it's about understanding. Later that night, Rachel called with news. The film rights are generating a lot of interest, and there's talk about a speaking tour, writing workshops, literary festivals. People want to hear your story, the real one. I looked at my laptop, where my 3rd novel was taking shape. Will I still have time to write? We'll make time, she promised. That's what matters most now. The next morning, Dustin stopped by the store. The writing group misses you. I miss them too. Come back, he said, not as a famous author, just as Kaya, who used to bring terrible coffee and great stories. I hugged him. Next Tuesday. The bell above the door chimed, and Sylvia walked in. We hadn't spoken since that night in my living room. I've been reading your new book, she said quietly. The mother in the story, is she me? She's every parent who pushes too hard, I replied. Every voice that makes someone doubt themselves. She nodded, tears in her eyes. Bryant called yesterday. He's writing again. Children's stories, if you can believe it. I can, I said, and meant it. My phone buzzed, another interview request. The subject line read, From Shadow to Spotlight, the Kaya story. No, I said aloud, typing a response. That's not my story anymore. Zoe looked up from the book she was shelving. What is your story? I gestured around the bookstore, at the readers browsing shelves, at my father helping a young girl find the perfect book, at my laptop, waiting for the next chapter. This, I said, all of this. That evening, I got an unexpected email from the National Literature Awards Committee. They were creating a new category for emerging voices, and they wanted me to be a judge. Your experience, the email read, has sparked an important conversation about authenticity and recognition in literature. I thought about all the writers out there, hiding their words, doubting their voices, about Bryant, starting over with children's stories, about Sylvia, learning to listen instead of judge, about my own journey from silence to speech. Yes, I wrote back, I'd be honored. At home, I opened my laptop to work on the new novel. The protagonist was different this time, not running from her past, but running toward her future, not hiding her voice, but letting it soar. My phone lit up with a text from Zoe. Dad wants to expand the bookstore. Says we need more room for the local authors section. Wonder whose fault that is. I smiled, thinking about the shy writers who now approached me at the store, sharing their hidden manuscripts, their secret dreams. Every time I told them the same thing. Your voice matters. Use it. The cursor blinked on my screen. Waiting. Outside, rain tapped against the windows of my new apartment, smaller than the old house, but filled with books and light and possibility. I began to type. This time, there was no bathroom hiding spot, no secret pen name, no fear of judgment, just words flowing from my fingers. telling stories that needed to be told. My story wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about Bryant or betrayal or even forgiveness. It was about finding my voice and finally, gloriously, using it. The bookstore hummed with excited voices as readers filled every available space. My father stood near the entrance, beaming as he directed traffic. Zoe arranged the last few chairs in our newly expanded reading area. Ready? Rachel touched my shoulder, clipboard in hand. I nodded, watching the crowd settle. This wasn't just another book signing or reading. This was different. Welcome to Writer's Voice, I said into the microphone. A safe space for hidden stories. The workshop participants, 20 aspiring writers, clutched their notebooks. Some had been hiding their words for years, decades even, just like I had. Before we begin, I said, I want to introduce someone. Bryant stepped forward from the back of the store. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. He looked different, calmer, less polished, more real. Hi, he said simply. I'm here to talk about what happens when you steal someone else's voice instead of finding your own. The room fell silent. This wasn't part of the program they'd signed up for. My first book comes out next month, he continued. A children's story about a little boy who learns it's okay to fail. I wrote every word myself. It's not going to win awards. It might not even sell well, but it's mine. I watched the workshop participants lean forward, drawn in by his honesty. The hardest part wasn't the public shame or the legal consequences, Bryant said. It was facing myself in the mirror and admitting I'd silenced someone else because I was too afraid to speak with my own voice. Sylvia, sitting in the front row, wiped her eyes. Now, I took the microphone back. Let's talk about your stories, the ones you've been afraid to tell. One by one, they shared. A grandmother who'd been writing romance novels in secret for 30 years. A teenager with a sci-fi epic hidden under his bed. A businessman who wrote poetry during his lunch breaks. Why do we hide? I asked them. Fear of judgment, someone called out. Not good enough, said another. Family expectations, a quiet voice added. I pulled out my first novel, the one Bryant had claimed. This book isn't just about finding your voice. It's about what happens when you let others silence it. The door chimed. My father led in a group of young writers from the local high school, where I'd started mentoring. Your voice matters, I told the room. Even if it shakes, even if it whispers, even if you think no one wants to hear it. Bryant stood up again. I have something for everyone here. He handed out copies of his children's book, not yet released. This is what starting over looks like. It's not perfect, but it's authentic. I watched him interact with the workshop participants, saw how they responded to his vulnerability. Redemption wasn't about grand gestures. It was about small truths, quietly shared. The bookstore's writing group meets every Tuesday, I announced. You're all welcome, no hiding allowed. Afterward, as the crowd thinned, Sylvia approached Bryant. Their relationship was still fragile, but healing. I'm proud of you, she said softly. Not because of success or failure, but because you're finally being honest. Rachel caught my eye, pointing to her watch. I had a publisher's meeting in an hour about my next book. Go, Zoe said. I'll clean up here. But I wasn't ready to leave. The energy in the room felt too important to abandon. The meeting can wait, I told Rachel. These stories can't. I sat with the remaining participants, listening to their hidden words emerge. Each voice unique, each story valuable. Bryant joined us, keeping a respectful distance, but participating genuinely. I'm learning to listen, he said when someone asked why he was there. Really listen. My father brought us coffee, pride shining in his eyes, as he watched his expanded bookstore become exactly what it was meant to be, a sanctuary for stories. This feels right, he said, squeezing my shoulder. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, illuminating the fresh paint on the wall behind the reading area. In careful letters, we'd written, "Every voice matters." Under it, bookshelves held works by local authors, their dreams no longer hidden in storage rooms or bathroom writing sessions. My books sat among them, Not above, not below, just part of the chorus. Same time next week? Someone asked as the workshop wound down. Every week, I promised. For as long as there are stories to tell. Bryant paused at the door on his way out. Thank you, he said quietly. Not for forgiving me, but for showing me what real writing looks like. I watched him leave, then turned back to my notebook, where I'd been jotting down ideas for the next workshop. The page was filled with possibilities, each one a potential voice waiting to be heard. The bookstore settled into evening quiet, but it wasn't silence anymore. It was anticipation, the peaceful pause between words that makes the story possible. I opened my laptop and began to write.